Good morning, welcome to Sewing Street this jolly and sunny Tuesday morning. I hope you're all well and safe and you're prepared for 3 hours of sewing loveliness. So we have fabrics for you in the first hour. The second hour is going to be a real treat for you because we have an hour of Jane Greenoff. She's very kindly made a video for us, so she's going to be taking us through some of her products and techniques. And then in the third hour, we're going to be doing a little bit of sewing, and I'm going to be making friends with the difficult overlocker that we had, air threading overlocker that we had on the show yesterday, which was really popular and half the stock sold out, and I don't know why. But I will show you at the 10 o'clock show this morning exactly why you're going to need an overlocker anyhow. But thank you for joining us so early this morning at 8 o'clock, and because you are with us bright and early, we bring you an early bird special. So this is a special offer item that is at a reduced price while we have the stock, or for the rest of the day. And we're talking embroidery threads. And I think more so than the threads is the storage that you're going to keep them in. This I think is invaluable. You will get threads as well, and you'll have a whole pile of these. We can't guarantee which colour you're going to get, but those are an absolute bonus. You're going to get 10 skeins of thread. But I love this idea, because inside here you've got organisation. I love to be organised, and we have bobbins. So I have a problem. I know that when you pull the thread off these, you should be able to pull them off without the papers coming out. Never can. Always end up in a big knot. And I know I've mentioned before, my embroidery thread cupboard is just a big bunch of knotted threads, and I can't find the ends of them anywhere. So then you end up with a big loop and chop that off, because I get so frustrated with trying to find ends. So then I have a big knot that I'm not throwing away because I've paid for that embroidery thread. But I do end up buying more because I can't be bothered to undo knots. So to be able to organise myself by sitting there patiently in a summer's day in the garden, wrapping the thread around my bobbins, and gosh, you're going to be able to store hundreds of them in here altogether, I think is a very worthwhile pastime to keep you organised and ultimately save yourself some money. So if you have the same problem as I have and you end up spending so much more money because you can't be bothered to undo knots, invest in £6.99 or twice as much if you want to go for 2 of these. Maybe you've got a friend that has the same dilemma, and you can order as many as you like. I think it's a well worth investment as well. Only while we have the stock though at £6.99. So 10, and the DMC skeins as well, so not just any old thread. You've got the good stuff here. We just can't guarantee which colour you're going to get, but only £6.99. Now if you're new to us this morning, hello, welcome along. It'll say down here £3.95 all day, and you might think, all day? Yep, so if you order your early bird now, that means you have one payment out of the way, so go all the way through to checkout or order on the phone lines, and then anything else you order throughout the day, whether it's fabric or the overlocker or embroidery threads or anything, or even off the website, it doesn't have to be what we have in the show, you won't pay any more postage. So I like to think of it as I pay my £3.95, get that out of the way, P&P free for the rest of the day, all the way through till midnight tonight. So even if you come back at 11:30 tonight, you think, oh, I wish I'd have got that early bird, I wonder if they've got any left, I need a packet of pins, then we're not going to charge you any extra, it'll all go on the same order. So there's your early bird, so that's your treat today. We'll come back to that because I fancied making a flower. I thought I'd do something. I don't do a lot of embroidery, my daughter does. She has a drawer with the same knotty problem, to be honest, so I could probably do with 2 of these. I use a lot of embroidery thread for faces on toys. So I'd have a little brown nose on a teddy bear, and maybe I'll have green eyes. Or if I just wanted to add a little touch of something, I made a caravan-shaped pencil case for the kids a while ago, and had tiny little flowers with French knots and lazy daisy stitches. So I wouldn't call myself a seasoned embroiderer, so to speak, and I'm certainly no cross stitcher like Jane Greenoff, but to add little details like that, I just do that. And I like hand sewing, particularly in the nice weather. We're lucky enough to have a garden, a little bit overgrown at the moment, but room for a chair and table, and I just think it's nice to sit out and do something. I can't sit still and read a book or something like that. I have to be doing something with my hands, and I'd rather be doing this than eating. That's normally the problem. So that's your early bird. Let's take a look at some fabrics. Okay, we're looking at May Morris, and there is a connection because May Morris, who is William Morris's daughter, was a very well-known embroiderer and tapestry artist. So there you go. So a lot of these designs, particularly the one that you're going to look at first here, are based on original tapestries that she made. And that original tapestry looks just like this. It's amazing. We are very limited on this collection. In fact, with this bundle, I could count how many we have left on 3 fingers. Work that one out. We've got an owl on there as well. Let me just manoeuvre this so you can see the... Where is it? There it is, look. There's lots to look at, isn't it? It's very dimensional. There's flowers and birds, and so over this side, I'll just come along so I can point. I think, oh no, hang on. I'll find it, I'll get it. I think it's a grouse. Just there, is that a grouse? Looks like a little grouse. But I just think every time you look at this, and the blue behind there, when I was pointing at the grouse, I thought, well, look, it's a pond, look. I don't think it is, I think it's flowers, but there's just so much to look at, so much to see in this fabric. It's really interesting. That's only one part of this bundle. You're getting 4 metres altogether. Love the colours as well, aren't they rich? You can imagine this as a tapestry in a stately home. You know, you're wandering around and you walk into somewhere where Henry VIII slept and it's all roped off so you can't see it, so you can't touch it. And we've got 4-poster beds and beautiful oak furniture with lots of carvings. This is what I'm imagining. Maybe that's where you live. Mind you, it's not very good living in a house with a roped off bed, is it? But get in it. So we've got little berries and leaves. I like these golden colours. You can imagine, I don't know, a cushion cover or a sofa. You know the sofa with the ties where the arms go up on the side, I don't know what they're called. So they've got the back and then the arms and big ties around the corners and huge heavy tassels. It's that kind of opulence that I see when I look at fabrics like this. Love the honeysuckle. We had a moment at home. I had the most beautiful honeysuckle, I'm saying, in a raised bed, which is about twice the size of it filled the whole bed and it draped all over the floor and it's just about to burst into flower. So I gave it a little bit of a pruning because it was going very up and I wanted it to go very down. And just after I finished, my husband came around with the shears and chopped it all back. I don't know why. I was almost as cross as the dressmaking shears and the felt roof tiles incident. So it's not a happy home at short hours at the moment. So deep reds, the reds and the golds, again, really, really rich. I'll get my own back. He built, and it's the bane of my life, we have the biggest Olympic-sized fish pond in our garden, and I keep threatening to punch a hole in the bottom of it. But it's full of fish, so that's not very fair. But I'll think of a way of filling it in to get my revenge one day. We're actually very happy. We've been together for an awful long time, but everybody has their moments, don't they? So we've had a honeysuckle moment this week. I'm not pleased at all. These are tulips. This is another one that is, it's very stylised. So it's one of those kind of fabrics that you have to look at really closely to see what they are. But these are actually little bunches of tulips and leaves there, which I think is really pretty. So again, 4 metres. Oh, let's move on. Less chat, more doing your job, Debbie Shaw. So this is the second bundle. We're still looking at May Morris, but this time these are the indigos with a contrast as well, which really makes all of the other prints stand out. Look at the birds. It's like looking into a forest at night time. These are upside down, aren't they? So we've got little bouquets and we've got the border stripes, flowers, tulips, and this is the same tapestry one with the owl on, but it looks very different in a different colour. 3.5 metres here for £51.99, and we are limited again on these. We don't have an awful lot of stock remaining. So May Morris as a designer for Moda, you know, you've got incredible designs for a very well renowned tapestry and embroidery artist, but you've also got the quality of the mode of fabric as well. So again, you've got the small berries, honeysuckle. I'm not mentioning it again, I'm so bitter. I know it'll grow again, but why? The dark midnight. And then the red, the tulips, sorry. And posies of flowers, and the berries, and again the border. But 4 metres in this one, and again we don't have so much stock left. So I know you've seen it before, but if you loved it, it may be your last chance to get hold of that one. As with your early bird, I was going to do a flower, wasn't I? Let's have a go. I used to do lots of things like this when I was at school or when I was younger with my mum. Just little embroidery tricks. And embroidery threads, I know it may be a bit of a waste, but it's really good if you're sewing together. If you want to sew, maybe ribbon embroidery. Sometimes you don't even see it, but as kind of, you know how you do the star shape and then weave ribbon around it. But if you want a really strong thread, you might do some gathering with this later on if you've still got some left on the sewing machine, because you can use it for gathering as well, even though it's not stretchy. So let's have a go. Or if you want to get in touch, by the way, I've got my Facebook page open. So if you go to Sewing Street TV and go to the visitor post, I'll tie a knot in the end of that, shall I? Go to visitor posts and leave me a message. So anything you like, if you want to send a picture, if you want to just say hello this morning, let us know what you're up to, anything particularly you'd like to see, then come and be part of the show this morning. It would be lovely to hear from you. So I'm going to do, let's do a daisy stitch for the stem. Just going to do a little flower. Or a chain stitch. It's not going to be a daisy, so we'll call it a chain stitch. I know there's proper terms for all of these. And I'm not splitting the threads. I think I've got 5 in here because I've got, my needle's a little bit too small and I couldn't fit 6 in there. Is that better? There you go. So I'm just making a very small stitch coming out about 1/4 of an inch away from the needle and wrapping the thread around the edge, and I'm not pulling it too tight. If you pull it really tight, it'll look more like a stem stitch, so you won't see the loops there. Okay, so just in the other side. Oops, so I'm trapping the edge of the circle. In you go, out you go. It will be a very different demo with Jane Greenoff in the next hour. It will be very professional. This is just a little bit of fun. Let's do one more. And then I'm going to leave my needle threaded, take a ruler and some pink, and this is where it goes knotty normally. And I'll have a length of that. Then I'm just going to wrap it around my ruler. And this is going to be a little bit like a thistle, hopefully. So I love thistles. The colours of them, they're really deep purples and just, I think they're really pretty. There's a lot of wildflowers that I wish we could grow in the gardens. I was walking the dog the other day and there was a whole patch of dandelions. And I was like, dandelions are really pretty. They're really lovely flowers. Why are they weeds? Okay, so a weed a flower in the wrong place. But I don't. I like the we get daisies in the lawn, and I won't have the lawn mown when we've got daisies in there because they're so pretty. So I've wrapped those together. Might have been a bit longer. Then I'm going to wrap my green thread all the way around there, right in the middle, just to hold that in place. Make sure that's central, nice and tight. Then I'm going to come back up again, just underneath there. And squish this together so it's all facing upwards like so. Move that out of the way so I'm in the middle, and then I'm going to go around the end of it and around some of that pink embroidery. So I can make like the thick part at the bottom of the thistle. May have a little bit too much embroidery thread in this one. So I'm just going to go round and round for a few times just to secure that to the fabric and to itself. There we go. I'll go back the other way actually. I really want that nice and tight. There. Right. Oh, by the way, while we're talking panels, if you were watching yesterday, we had the Lily of the Valley panel, which we sold out of, and then we managed to get a few more back in stock again. It is now available on the website. You'll need to search the item code on there, which is DRUU61. So that has because it wasn't working on the website yesterday, you had to order on the phone. Also, if you can't remember the code I've just given you, or if you didn't get a chance to write that down, if you just search Lily, then that will come up. Could have done that a little bit neater, I think, but that'll do. Fasten it off on the back, a little knot, and see how we look. So then all of those loops at the top I'm going to cut through. That needs a trim. Oh, I've got a little bit of a pucker in there. Oh, it's quite sweet, isn't it? Give it a trim down so it's all the same size. Getting used to cutting my own hair. I did my fringe this morning. Does it look a bit like this? There. Could be a little bit more thistle. If it was purple, then it'd look a little bit more thistle-like, wouldn't it? That needs a bit of a press. But I just think a little row of those maybe around the flap of a bag would look really nice. Just add a little bit of interest, or the lapel of a collar. It's nice on knitwear as well, because the thread's so thick it really stands out. Oh, I quite enjoyed doing that. The thing is, you do one thing like that and you think, oh, right. Oh, why could I put that maybe on a cushion? Oh, a cushion cover. You could actually make proper little pom-poms and have a big design going across the front of the cover. You won't be able to put it in the wash, but, you know, it'd look really pretty. Oh, and we've got some bee buttons on the website as well. They'd look nice, wouldn't they, sewn on, flying around. You can create your own artwork. Oh, enjoyed that. Let's take a look. I had a little bit of inspiration for you. So an odd flower on a cushion cover may not float your boat. Have a look at some of the amazing designs in this book here. What I like about this as well, it's very good kind of coffee table reading, because there's a lot of history about the different types of work. So gold work, and we've got metal thread work, there's red work, there's black work. So there's lots of ideas for you, but then there are projects and instructions on how to create some of the designs as well. Who would have thought an embroidered banana would look amazing? But it's the way that it's all shaded, isn't it? It looks so realistic. And in fact, that's the picture that it's been copied from. So even if you don't intend to embroider a banana, I just find it really interesting, the whole process. So that could be adapted to, you know, any kind of fruit or vegetable that you wanted to embroider. I love to see the process, you know, that's lovely. Well, I like all the business in the background as well. But by having a book with instructions, these are achievable, or it could be something I love the black and white ones. Something for you to work towards. I mean, the tiger's got little tiny arrows, and it's not just a black, white and grey shaded. There's actually a design incorporated into all of that. I wonder how big that is. It's the same with this one. You know, when you see like a photograph, when it's blown up so much it pixelates, it looks a little bit like that. These are all of the stitches. Must be tiny. So it's a fascinating book. I think you're going to get a lot of pleasure from your £25 investment. And of course learn a lot as well. So many different styles and so many different topics. Things that you may not, you know, even have thought of doing. So all of your stitches in the front, pages and pages and pages of different techniques. I have to say she's omitted to include my thistle. We'll have a footnote in the back. I don't think I could compete with anything that's in here. Even a section on taking care of your embroidery, that's really interesting. It's a huge book. Look how thick it is. It's lovely. Eyelets. It's, even if you don't make anything from the book, it's just really interesting. Oh, look at the 3-dimension. That's a mermaid, isn't it? Turn that over. No, not quite a mermaid, but it could be. Incorporating beads, wrapping. No, it's a beautiful book. £25 is your price. If you'd like to order, you can do that on the website, which is sewingstreet.com, or you can phone us up. It's 0800 001 4433, and that's a free UK-based phone number. Gorgeous. So again, if you want to get in touch this morning, are you there yet? Got nobody there this morning. It's Facebook. So we have 2 Facebook pages, okay? One is a fans page, which is a group, which is a lovely place to be. There's lots of people on there already, thousands of you, sharing ideas, inspirations, and swapping hints and tips. But if you go to the Sewing Street TV Facebook page, that's where we're going to give you announcements and updates, what's coming up in the week, if anything special is going to be happening. And on the Visitor Post page, that's where you can leave messages that I can pick up in the studio right now. So, what's going to be coming up in the rest of the week? What kind of thing are you going to be seeing coming up over the next few days? I wonder. I've got a new book. I'm so excited about this one. We can't offer this for you today. I am giving you a blatant tease as to what's coming up on Monday morning. So we don't actually have these in the building yet. When we do, I've got thousands to sign. So I may well on Monday morning be a little bit lily-wristed because it hurts. This is Debbie Shaw's Sewing Room Secrets. It's the second in a series of books that I'm writing at the moment, which are technique-based. All of my books, this is my 22nd book, and all of them, apart from the previous one to this, the machine sewing one, have been project-based. This is different. This is a whole different series. This is technique-based. And these are the techniques of quilting. So I'm not talking making patchwork quilts. You're not going to see lots and lots of different patterns for patchwork in here, because I think they're 2 separate things. They can be used together, and most of the time are, but you can quilt so much more than just a patchwork quilt. So the projects in here, or the techniques in here, are hand tying a quilt. That's the English paper piece quilt that's at the back here. So all of that has been made by hand, and that's tied. So there's no machine in sewing in that apart from the binding around the edge. This one is quilt as you go. So a different quilting technique where every single panel is quilted individually, then sewn together. The one at the top over there is a different quilt as you go technique that's using a template that you can buy. This one's using stencils. This one is free motion embroidery. This is big stitch quilting. That one's echo quilting. The storage thing here doesn't look anything like a quilt, and there's no patchwork in it, but it's quilted. And I've got the bag there, which is a different quilting technique. So quilting to me is sewing through 3 layers of fabric. It could be an egg cozy, it could be a king size bed quilt. So that's what I'm not concentrating on, the king size bed quilt, but those are the kind of things that I'm looking at in the book. So this is launching, remember, on Monday. So please don't go to the website now, it won't be there. And please don't phone the call centre saying, can I pre-order? Because we don't actually have it yet. I'm just giving you a big fat tease as to what's coming up on Monday. Generally, when you see the launch of a new book, particularly with a signature in it, the shows are incredibly busy. So I just want to give you a heads up. So if you want the book, I mean, for beginners, if you've never quilted before, then, I'll tell you what is a quilt sandwich. There's a lot of jargon in quilting. Straight line quilting, quilt as you go, free motion, self-bound, a lot about the binding. And then there are 10 projects in here altogether. The Christmas stocking, that's trapunto. So that's another different style of quilting, and I'll show you how to do that with traditional methods as well. So it's stripping everything back to basics, explaining the jargon and giving you projects as well. So if you're an experienced quilter, you won't learn anything. But if you're new, or if you're teaching someone how to sew, that's very similar technique to the heart that I did yesterday on the front of a cushion cover in the show. But that again is all hand stitched, so that's your big stitch quilting. I love doing that. And then you've got English paper piecing as well. So again, coming up on Monday morning. If you can't watch the show, I'm not sure what time it's going to be. It'll be somewhere between 8 and 11. Just make a note of the book title and the phone number. And then you can phone that way, so you don't have to find us and watch the whole show and things like that. I just don't want you to miss it. I get in so much trouble when we sell out a book. We didn't get enough, did you? I couldn't get hold of mine. So, and it will be exclusive for 2 weeks as well. So although you'll find on some of the big websites it's on a pre-order, if you order on Monday, you'll get yours before the big websites can start selling their books out. And the likes of the huge websites don't have signed books. And I can't even get it on my website because my publisher Search Press have given Sewing Street the exclusivity. So you won't be able to buy it in any other store before you are Sewing Street customers. Oh. Sarah says she loves the quilts on the back. Thank you very much. I wanted to make everything achievable. There's nothing complicated, as you can see. Even the big quilt there is only triangles. So just something that everybody can do. But every single one you're looking at is a different quilting technique. Very exciting. It takes so long to write a book. I started this 18 months ago, and we collaborate with my producer, with my editor, who is Becky from Search Press for this one, and we talk about the kind of things that we're going to put in the book, and then off I go and I do my bit and we do the projects and we photograph everything. Then it goes back to Becky, my editor, again, and she goes through everything. So, oh, we need this and we don't need that in there, and you spelt that wrong, and I don't understand the measurements. From her, it then goes on to a professional proofreader. They used to be in South Africa, I think they're over here now. Anyway, and then they go through everything with a fine-tooth comb. So probably 6 months later, it comes back and says that shouldn't be 10 inches, it should be 10.25. So all of the measurements and everything else have to be gone back through again and double check that everything's okay. And then it can take up to a year to get it printed. They're printed in China, and because of the way things are at the moment, it takes even longer to get them back over here again. Then you get advance copies, which I had a few weeks ago, and then the book arrives. And I've forgotten what's in it. It was so long ago. But that's the same for any book. It takes so long, and there's so many people working on it, and it's such a big effort. And when you actually get it in your hands, even though that's number 22 for me, this is so exciting. And I still, every time I see my name on something, I still can't believe I've written a book. It's just, that's it. It's got my name on a book. I know. So there are only 2 copies at the moment, and I've got both of them. The rest of them should be arriving by Monday, and they're coming straight here before anywhere else. And it's coming in early. It shouldn't have been here till the 8th of June, but we only heard yesterday that we're going to be able to get it in time for Monday's show. Oh no, it's really exciting. So anyway, that's that. Big fat tease. Let's have a look. You can't quilt without fabric, can you? Let's have a look at what we've got. And if you are so you don't have to patchwork to quilt. Maybe you're just going to do a whole cloth quilt all in one colour with one colour of thread. No patchwork involved at all. Plain colours work really well, don't they? But I love plain fabrics like this. I've got so many different colours. Don't buy them with any particular project in mind, but I know that somewhere down the line I'm going to have another fabric that I need to mix and match with, and I won't have it. So even if I've gone for the May Morris, that could be part of the bundle, doesn't it? It works so well with all of those colours. I know I say it a lot, but I very rarely buy one piece of fabric. I'll always look for coordinating, because very rarely will I make a project that only has one colour in it. So if it's a bag, I'd want a contrast bag lining, I might want contrast pockets. If it's a cushion cover, I might want to put some applique on there, or a contrast colour to for my buyer's binding. So I don't think, have I ever? I can't think of anything I've ever made from one colour of fabric. Oh, I didn't show you that either, did you? That's one of them. And oh no, that's Monday. No, I honestly can't think of anything I made from one colour. Even if I'm making a blouse or something, it's quite nice to have the inside of the placket in a different colour. It's just, yeah. So useful, solid colours. Keep them in your stash. They're only £12.99 and you've got 2 metres there as well. We have tiger fabric from Lewis and Iron. You have to look twice for the tigers in this. Oh, how's that? So the tigers are forming the circles around here. It's not really different. Oh no, now with this one, if you want to go for tigers on black, we've got 2 metres left. So if you love it and you want to make a shirt or something or a larger project and you want 2 metres, order 4 of those. It goes with everything, look. Whoa. Definitely, I definitely go for your plains if you're going to go for this one. So this is by the metre. Oh, Margaret sent a message. She's really excited about my book. Thank you. Whenever, and this is anybody that produces anything of their own. I'm sure Jane feels the same when she does her cross stitch and her books, or anybody that designs fabric. No matter how much you love it, the first time you show it to somebody else, at the back of your mind you're thinking, what if you don't like it? Well, if I spend all that 18 months working on this book and nobody buys it, wouldn't that be awful? So to have a positive feedback is just amazing. Thank you. Hi, Jenny. She says, morning, Debbie. Love your enthusiasm and how much you inspire so many. Thank you. I wish I would have known this was happening. Oh, because I've already pre-ordered on another site. You cancel it. Well, you haven't got it yet, have you? And you get it sooner from Sewing Street. Although I have enough stuff signed by you, don't I? I met Jenny in a previous life when I worked on a different shopping channel, and she came in for a tour of the building, and I actually signed a sewing machine for her, which I thought would be straight onto an auction site, but she's still got it in her shop window at the moment. And I just thought, because she bought loads of stuff while she was there, and I thought I might as well just sign everything. 505 spray inside the letter. Everything she picked up when she got home would have had my signature on it somewhere. She could have made a fortune, but no, still got it all. But it's lovely. I mean, compliments are fabulous. Support is so appreciated, and that's not just for me, that's for everybody here. So thank you for all of that. So, should we talk about fabric? Let's have a look at our next tiger. This is on the white back. Oh. It's almost like it was planned. This could be part of the bundle. And when you consider a plain bundle like this goes with every single colour in here, but it also goes with a completely different style of fabric. Now you can see how useful that's going to be. I wonder, no, I wouldn't. Doesn't go with everything, but it does work so well together with all of that. And if you're looking at that, oh no, hang on a minute, because I'm just skipping ahead to something completely random on another bundle. Oh. Now it goes darker, look. Put it against the green, it looks quite dark. Put it against the teal or the dark green, and this fabric looks even darker. But when you put it against the pink, it looks brighter. Completely transforms the colour, doesn't it? But I think the greens... if you're going to go for tigers or if you're going to go for the May Morris bundle, personally. Tiger on black sold out now. Well done to you. That's your tiger on white against £5.99 for the half metre. And they do come in one piece if you ordered more than one. And then we've got tiger on red. I would have automatically thought red. I need red to go with that, but it goes with green. Actually, it goes with pink. So again, £5.99 and by the half metre. So if you wanted a metre in length, order 2 and we'll give you a metre all in one length. But as it goes so well with this bundle, this is another bundle. So you're getting 3 here. So it goes with the pink. It kind of goes with the fuchsia, although there's no fuchsia in there. That's a little bit odd, isn't it? But it does go. and then, nah. So here you have the pink and the bright fuchsia, and you've got the purple. We should have another one in there, shouldn't we? Let me see what else comes with that one. Is it that one? It may be that one. We'll double check. I think I've got so busy mixing and matching the different fabrics together, I've made it just a complete mess. So I'm here. The way it works, if you didn't know, with shopping channels or any kind of live television, I've got an earpiece. So in my ear, we're very kind of short-staffed at the moment because of the situation. So at the moment, I can hear two people. I can hear Joe, my director, who's next door here, and I can hear Hannah, my producer, who's upstairs. So as things are selling out, or as things are getting busy, or we need to give you stock updates, that's kind of where it all comes from. We don't sit and make it all up. And I just heard, can we go to the Poodles? And our fabric is fabulous, if you don't mind. So now, if you hear a presenter occasionally having a bit of a snigger, it's probably because they've misheard something. They can't say poo on the telly. It is the cream that comes with the bundle there. She was obviously thinking as she was talking, we'll go to the Poodles. There we go. Nice to keep you informed of things that are selling out though, because you tend to sit and watch. I think shopping telly particularly is like wallpaper. It's just there, it's just on. Occasionally something catches your eye that you like. You think, oh, I'll buy that. But if things do start selling out, I don't want it to come back as I'm going, that's now sold. I think I haven't even seen it. So give you lots of warning. So, Poodles and Doodles. I think these are the names of the cats and the dogs. So this has got a lovely lilac in the background, and I think it's quite retro. Just with the styles of the chairs, they're very 1960s inspired, aren't they? And even, oh gosh, that took me back a bit. There used to be a television station with an icon that had that, and it came out and spun around. Was that Anglia or something? Can't remember. Ooh. So £5.99. Is the price there? No, Anglia was a knight on a horse with a big flag, wasn't it? Because I used to think it was a Sweetie advert when I was a kid. Don't know why. Station ident. And I was like, oh, sweets. Don't you go off a tangent when you're just talking nonsense sometimes? So this is the pink option. So again, you do have there's cats and dogs on this one. We've got cat. We must have dogs. I thought it was cats and dogs. Oh, we've just got the cat ones. Oh, cause that looks like a dog to me. It looks like a little Scotty dog, but apparently they're all cats. Maybe it's a cat called Poodle. There aren't any poodles on the fabric. Poodle and Doodle cat naps on Pale Peach. That's £5.99 again. That's by the ½ metre. So if you ordered more than one, it all comes in one nice long length. Then we have that bundle. These are lovely sunshine colours. That purple bundle that I just showed you, we have 2 of those left now, so that's going to go quickly. But look at the colours on these. That's so sunny, isn't it? I'm thinking of crocuses and daffodils. Sunflowers would be lovely, and my dandelions, which are really, really pretty in my eyes. Or a summer morning, just as the sun's rising. They're really uplifting colours, aren't they? Really happy, very jolly, and again, very useful. Let's have a go. Kind of goes. With this one, now we're down to 5 metres. So if you want 5 metres, you need to order 10. That goes nice actually as well. That. Even though there's no yellow in it, because this is a very yellowy green, it kind of emphasises the colour of the green, doesn't it? And that would go rather nicely with the deep gold. That's good, doesn't it? Love playing with fabrics like this. If you have a look on the website, if you think, oh, well, I only want that one, I don't want those three, have a look on the website on sewingstreet.com, and all of these solid colours are available on their own as well. So you don't have to go for the bundles. You normally make a bit of a saving when you do, but you don't need to. £12.99 brings you 2 metres there in total. The green ones, we've only got 3 left. Glad you're going for these. I think you'll find them really useful and they're nice quality. It's affordable fabric, but it's really lovely quality. It's not all thin and scratchy and see-through as you'd expect for £12.99 for 2 metres. So what's that? £3 a metre, £3.25 a metre. Incredible value. Right, we have more bundles for you. When we first brought you these, I was thinking a summer blouse. And I know that it's a bundle, so you're only getting half a metre of each. If you order 2 bundles, you get 2 bundles. They don't come joined up. But I'm thinking elasticated panel around the top, so it's off the shoulder, and a nice big frill around here, so that's quite flattering. Not many people have a fat shoulder day, do they? So that's a nice area to show off. And then maybe a bit of patchwork going on. So that's around the top there. And then use one of the darker contrasts. And don't just wear that. Well, you could, privacy. They were encouraging people to be naked in their gardens the other day on TV. I don't know if it was a Be Naked in Your Garden day, but I said, well, we've got neighbours, have children. Hannah Producer has a communal garden. I don't know if I approve at all. No, I kind of fancied a really lovely summer dress, maybe a pinafore type of thing, using 2 contrasts of the same colour blue. And the blues, royal blues and whites, just look so summery and fresh and clean and bright. And you've got really classic designs here. That was folded well. So let me take you through all of these, because we've only got 2 of these left. This one won't be back again. We can't get hold of this one again. So again, if it's one of those that you've seen before and you think, God, it's about time I treated myself to that one. Doesn't really matter about folding these up if they won't be back, does it? Let me take you through really quickly. So we've got the twiggy ones and the florally ones, and then we have the reed design, and that looks like a print, like a stamp design to me. So I'm going to go large. I'm going to go large floral stamp and reverse of large floral stamp, and then tiny little dots. That's ink spots to me, and then buds. I'm going for that one. £38.93 gives you a saving of £3, and you've got 3.5 metres in total. So you've got 7 lovely contrasting prints there for your £38.98. Have we got any more messages? Oh, morning, Debbie. Morning, Dawn. Says, not only do you inspire, you also educate. I've learnt so much from you. I think you're wonderful. Oh, thank you. Oh, Jenny's back in. She's cancelled her order with the other site. What is the code for your signed version? I can't find it on the website. It's not there yet. It'll be there on Monday. Okay, it'll be there on Monday's show on the website. Jenny, I'm doing a live Facebook on my Facebook page on Saturday morning. So I know you're usually there. I might have some news for you there. So we've got more. I love getting your messages. It's so nice. Kate says, morning Debbie, watch whilst doing my yoga exercises, getting ready for a day of sewing as I'm furlough. You have the perfect voice for the start of the day, and what gorgeous fabrics. Thank you. Last time somebody commented on my voice, it was on a YouTube channel, and she said she puts me on at night to send her to sleep. Not interested in sewing, just really boring voice. Thank you. I'm a complete novice, says Maureen, but so want to learn how to quilt. I will be buying your book, Debbie, just what I need. Thank you very much. They're so, honestly, so appreciated. Are we up to date there? Oh, Joe's birthday is on Friday, and my son wanted to know what to get me. I think it's going to have to be a signed Debbie Shaw book. Woohoo! I'm going to do it again. Blatant plugging. This is my latest book. It's literally just arrived in the country. In fact, I'm not sure if it is in the country, but it will be by Monday. We've been promised. So I've got only 2 copies at the moment, and I'm keeping them. So it's a beginner's guide to quilting. Sewing Room Secrets. This is the second in a range of. So it's only the second book out of 22. I've got my picture on the front. That's a bit odd. But Sewing Room Secrets is a basic range of books that I'm working on that are for beginners, and it's techniques based. So I'm not going to teach you lots of patchwork. I'm going to teach you lots of different ways of quilting. And quilting can be a tiny little item. It can be a huge bed quilt. The first one was machine sewing. Again, a complete introduction for brand new sewers to machines. I'm working on dressmaking at the moment. So that one, just to give you an idea of saying how long these things take, I will be finished writing the book by the end of this month. That's why I'm just working flat out trying to get it done, and that'll publish next January. So and it's available for pre-order as well. It's unbelievable, I haven't even written it yet. But that's the way that it works. So when these things actually come to fruition and you've got one in your hand after all of this time, it's just the most amazing feeling. But we are looking at complete beginners, explaining the techniques. And then there are 10 projects as well. So just like with the previous book, with the machine sewing, I'll teach you the techniques and then use those techniques to go forward and make projects from them. So we've got lots of hints and tips. Essentials for quilting. We're not talking about any other genre of sewing, so there's no dressmaking techniques and all of that kind of thing. The feet that you're going to need, the tools that you're going to need. And then we'll go through to quilting templates. A lot of you will use either a quilting rule on your sewing machine, or maybe templates that you chalk through or draw through. Different types of fabrics you can use and fabric terminology. Loads about wadding. If you're quilting a bed quilt or a cot quilt, then you need wool, but if you're quilting anything else, it doesn't have to be. Quilting in a straight line, so there's lots of tips about the quilting and the cutting. Different machine stitches, applique, what's a quilt sandwich, what are them bent safety pins for? But things that you may, if you're learning to quilt, you may have heard of quilt as you go, but what does it mean? What's straight line quilting? What's free motion embroidery? What's a self-bound straight binding, for goodness sake? So you can bind a quilt without using bias binding, and I'll show you how to do that with a quilt as you go little mini quilt. And then bias binding. These are all different ways of bias binding your work and then making your own bias binding. So it's the kind of things that as a beginner you might think, I have no idea what a quilt sandwich is. This is a beach hut storage hanger. I've sewn through 3 layers. So I've got my top layer, I've got that's Bosal single-sided foam in the middle and a backing layer, and I've quilted around I can show you. Because I really rather like this, I've stuck it down. Because I've sewn through 3 layers, it's quilted. It's not a quilt, it's not patchwork. You may not look at that and think it belongs in a quilting book, but this is quilting. And I know I've said before, I love a deep padding and then stitch over the top, because you get such a lovely 3-dimensional look to it. But that's quilting, that's quilting. All around the edge here and putting the applique on is quilting, because I'm sewing through the backing layer as well. And that's the kind of thing I wanted to demystify in the book. It's not all about patchwork. So when you see quilting books or quilting demonstrations, you'll see people cutting very accurate tiny pieces of fabric, turning them around, joining them back together again, like this kind of thing. But that doesn't have to be quilting. The quilt, I've stuck this one down as well, but I want to show you. Because I've quilted, I've done straight line quilting, and then I've free motion quilted just a few random boxes. So it looks as though some of them are raised and some of them are squished down. Still quilting. But you see, you get a really nice textural effect there. So if I turn that up to the end a little bit, you can actually see down it. So it flattens out the ones that you've quilted. You can make that even more padded in the back as well. In fact, you could use a trapunto technique on that and make them really, really padded. And that's explained in there as well. So this is why I'm so excited about it. Most of the people that I write for or design for are people that are brand new to sewing, don't understand jargon, they're coming back to sewing, you haven't sewn for 30 or 40 years, techniques have changed and products have changed, fabrics changed, contents changed, sewing machines have changed. So that's who I'm writing the book for. So I'm glad you like it. That's on Monday. Okay, there's going to be a big day on Monday and I can't wait. If you can't be there, then on Monday morning, wherever you are, you can still go to the website, you can still go to sewingstreet.com and you can place your order that way. So you don't have to watch the show, you don't have to try and find channel 74 if you haven't got it. You don't have to wait until it goes on the YouTube site. You can go to the website, sewingstreet.com, or you can phone on 0800 001 4433 and just if you want to, place your order that way as well. Thank you very much. Oh, I love your messages. Jan, morning Debbie, I'm sitting here watching you when I should be doing housework. Hey ho, it can wait. It's, what day is it today? It's Tuesday. It's a rule, you can't do housework on a Tuesday. You know, all of the rules and regulations that are put in place at the moment, you have to socially distance from the duster on a Tuesday, okay? And the vacuum cleaner, you have to be at least 2 meters away from it on a Tuesday. That is a lie, by the way. Nikki said, can't wait for Monday. And all of your books, you've got a big shelf. Looking to replace the 2 I've lent out and never seen again. Beautiful bags and early cushion based with washing line of cushions on the cover. That was my first ever book. That was about 12 years ago. Wow. Can't remember the title, Making Cushion Covers. Most of them are signed. Thanks for everything you do, from Nikki. Oh, thank you so much for that. I can't wait till Monday now. I've gone past all of the ooh bit. I just can't wait for the show now. Anyway, should we bring you something that you can buy today? So this thread will be available in 3 weeks' time. No, we brought this to you yesterday and it was really, really busy, so I want to bring it back and show you again. This is a box of 50 embroidery threads, all different colours, for just under £50, so it's only about £1 a pop, and that means that you're not paying for the box at all. So embroidery thread, you can use this for hand embroidery if you're doing some very delicate work, but for free motion embroidery on your sewing machine, so you don't have to have an embroidery machine to use this for embroidery, or if you just wanted some very delicate stitches maybe, or you've got some beautiful floral decorative stitches on your sewing machine, oops, you can use these. But if you do have an embroidery machine, you've got such a wonderful palette. Let me just show you how many blues we've got here. So you can shade with them. Imagine if you're doing bluebells. You can create so much texture and shade just from all of the blues. I think that's it with the blues. And then with the pinks. Is that pink or is it orange? All of those. Every single one of them is a different colour. Is that pink? That's kind of going into red, or is it dark pink? But every one of them different. And again, at £1 a piece, incredible good value. So I'm sorry, but every time I bring them and take them out, they have to go back properly. Because then I know when somebody else has been in there. So. There you go. So 50 for £49.99, all in a storage organised box. Also yesterday, we brought you some panels. We have managed to get some stock back in again. So we have the wall hanging. So you can use this just on its own. We have less than 30 of these remaining. You can just stitch in the ditch. You don't know what that is. I've got a book coming out. You can stitch around them. You can cut them out. I made a cube in the show the other day with them. You could use them as wall hangings with pockets on the front. You could use it just as it is. You can put a big border around there and make it into a cot quilt. Really, really useful. Hannah, our producer, actually bought 2 yesterday. Why did you buy 2, Hannah? She wants to do... Oh, can I say what you're doing? Is that going to be a surprise for somebody? She's going to make the word Bab, who's a friend of hers, so she needed 2 Bs, so she bought 2. This is the traditional. So you have the complete alphabet with more than one word here. So you could do Bab. So traditional font, and these have all got different colours with spots in the background as well. So this one you could use as a plique on a cushion cover, on a drawstring bag. Maybe you're decorating a child's bedroom. This could be storage boxes, or just learning toys as well. Just putting the letters and the numbers on there. Do a bit of spelling and adding up. You could actually make a spelling game, couldn't you? If you cut these out with your heat and bond on the back, your Bonder web on the back we have for you, and then stick them onto a really firmly interfaced piece of fabric. You can make cards with them. Maybe play Snap and games like that. Or again, spelling games. So those are the traditional. We also have the grey. So this is a more modern font, just in different shades of grey. £45.99. And is also available in the brights. There you go. But less than 15 of these left. So have a look on the website for more details there. We did sell out completely over the weekend, but we've got just a few back in stock for you at the moment. That is only £5.99. Okay, we are going to throw over to Jane Greenoff for the next hour. She's got some, she's got almost an hour's worth of demonstrations for you, which is recorded for us very kindly. So we'll have a quick tidy up and see you again in about 3 minutes' time.
Would you like to take part in our weekly competition? If you do, then all you have to do is head to the Sewing Street fan page group on Facebook. Post your picture of your make. Myself, Debbie Shaw and John Cole Morgan love looking at all of your makes every week. We pick our favourite and announce the winner every Friday live on the show. Happy sewing and good luck.
Hello there, I'm Debbie Shaw, and I would love you to join me on the first Monday of every single month for Sewing Street Surgery. Now, this is a dedicated hour where I answer your questions, and that could be questions about techniques, it could be questions about tools, it could be questions about new products, or maybe something that you've seen that you just don't understand. There's a lot of questions about tensions on sewing machines, and there's a lot of questions about working with different weights of fabrics. So if you have a question that you'd like to ask me, the easiest way to bring a question over to us is to go to our Facebook page and post your question on there. I will collate all of those questions throughout the week. If we need any new products for you, or if we need any new demonstrations, those will all be worked on leading up to that first Monday of the month. So do join me, Debbie Shaw, on Sewing Street Surgery on the first Monday.
Shopping with us couldn't be easier. If you want to shop online, then you can head to our website, www.sewingstreet.com. It will redirect you to our sister channel Jewellery Makers landing page. Don't worry, you haven't gone to the wrong place. We're simply using their website temporarily while we're building our own web shop. Scroll down past the Watch Live part and you'll see all of the products that you will have seen on air on today's live show. You can also shop our catalogue by clicking a category, clicking a product to view closer, and adding it to your basket. Once you're ready to check out, you will need to create an account, which is absolutely free to do so, but it will mean that you can check out on as many orders as you want throughout the day with still only paying one postage and packaging. If you'd prefer to speak to somebody in our UK-based customer service team, then you can do so via the free telephone line number 0800 001 4433. They will not only help you create an account, but will also help you with any of your online shopping.
Hello and welcome. We love hearing from you, and we really hope that you can follow us on our social media platforms. We've got Instagram, which is @Sewing Street. We have Facebook. We've got 2 Facebook pages. One is the Sewing Street TV page, and the other one is Sewing Street Fans. All three of these are monitored all the time by our wonderful team, and if you want to message us on air, drop us a line on either of those three and we'll definitely be able to answer your questions that you may have. If you post on the actual wall, we can perhaps answer there, otherwise message us as well. That works really, really well. Thank you so much for being involved, and it's only because of this community that we're able to bring you all these different diverse products and to be able to answer your questions that you may have. Another way you can stay in touch with us is by signing up to our newsletter. These newsletters are sent out to you very regularly, and they include not only our guest profiles of upcoming guests, but also amazing shows that we've got coming up for you. And if you want to look at the amazing products before everybody else, that's the best way to do it. If you'd like to sign up and you haven't already, the link to follow is www.sewingstreet.com/sign up. You won't regret it. Thank you.
Hello there, welcome back to Sewing Street. Now we have a very special hour for you this hour because Jane Greenoff has very kindly been in the studio and she's been filming lots of products for you and lots of demonstrations as well. So I'm going to finish right here and send you straight over to Jane. So have a look at this and enjoy.
Hello, hello. It's Jane Greenoff and it's lovely to be back with you again. Under unusual circumstances, so I haven't got the lovely Vicky or anyone else to help me, so you'll have to bear with me. Anything could happen. So we're going to look at some lovely things from the Cross Stitch Guild, and we brought you some new things this time again, and we'll see if anyone gets in touch and whether anyone wants me to do a French knot or something even worse. So we're going to run around the table so you've seen everything, and obviously you must keep in touch with the website. Go and ferret about in there because there'll be other things in there as well as what I've got to show you today. Right, lovely. So here we go. Okay, so if we go over to the corner here, first thing we're going to be looking at, now we call this the Shaker Trio, and it was designed because I went to visit a Shaker town in America called Hancock Village, and there were some wonderful patterns and it all just went from there really. And so you actually are going to get all the contents to make all three. So that's a real sweet, I'll show you more in a minute. Then we've got a little surprise for you. This wonderful box. Again, I'm going to come back to that because as you can see, there's lots to it. Then we're going to look at the needle. Now, lots of you know about the gold needles. You've met me before and you've seen them, but this time we've got two sets to tell you about. One for you if you've not stitched before, and if you've done it lots of times and you need lots of needles, there's another one for you as well. So we'll talk about those in a minute. Next, we've got the flower sampler book, which is a jewel. This, I have to tell you, is a copy of the original, done for me by Cross Stitch Guild members when my original was stolen from me at a show. 11 months' work somebody toddled home with. I'm not going to tell you what I put on Facebook because it was unprintable. Then we're coming over here to what we call a biscornu. Now, this is this funny shape. And it's actually two squares. So I'll tell you a little about that in a minute. This is a lovely new sampler today. Now, samplers, again, are a fascinating subject. I can go on about those for a day. I haven't got a day, so I'll be a bit nippy. Come back to that again, so that, again, all these will be on the website if you want to go and have a little nosy. And then we've got two books from herself. Obviously, they're both signed. So, again, have a look on the website and you'll be able to see more detail, but I will go through all these properly with you now. Right, everybody, here we go. Get that kettle on and let's settle down and look at some nice stitching. I'm going to pinch things and everything's going to fall down, so be prepared. So this is the Shaker Trio I mentioned, and I've got a whisker on it, so I'll get rid of that. There's a little scissor pouch with a shaker house. There's a little pincushion, which is buttoned. This is fixed to our board, but obviously you don't need to do that. That's again to stop things being pinched. So a little button pincushion. And this is what we call a watt bow, this funny little shape, which I can tell you about. This is a smashing little kit. I'm going to reach across here for you. There we go. And you can see I'm not going to open this one because I'm quite convinced these are stuck down with elephant spit. But there's a bundle of threads, there's your lining, and more important of all, you're going to get the lovely scissors. Now these look tiny, but they're fiercely sharp. Really, really good scissors. They're Italian. And you get the buttons and the chart and the fabric. And so you're going to be able to make this. I would consider this something that if you've never stitched before, you could easily stitch yourself. Let me move the thread out of the way. I learnt to stitch, cross stitch on linen completely by accident. It was a ridiculous situation. I was introduced to it by a neighbour. My husband and I just moved to the Cotswolds, and I'd never stitched. I'd sewn, I'd made my own clothes when I was nursing, but I'd never done any embroidery. And this young lady next to me showed me something she was stitching. Beautiful sampler. And I said, oh, you're going to get it framed? And she said, well, no, I've got another alphabet to put on yet. But there was no transfer on the fabric, no printing. And I mean, I was nonplussed, frankly. Anyway, she explained that you counted from a chart and put it, and it was like a light bulb moment for me. I mean, it changed my life. 35 years later, look at me. I learnt on linen that day. I stitched a strawberry, which I can't find, or I would have brought to show you because it wasn't very good. But yes, I stitched this strawberry on this linen, loved it, and much later discovered the alternative fabrics, some of which are mooted to be simpler. It's a matter of opinion, but more about that in a minute. So that's your shaker trio. I'll pop this back, and we'll have a quick look at the box. Well, this is an exploding box. I know those of you who quilt will know the context of this completely, but I'll put it together again for you. And it will fall apart again, no doubt. So actually what you're going to stitch is the individual panels. Now when you come to look at the chart, which I'll show you in this beautiful box, this is how it comes. You're going to get a chart with all the elements of the project on one big sheet, and you're going to stitch it on one big piece of fabric, and then it gets cut out. So you can work on chunks at a time. So you've obviously got the 4 outside panels, then you've got inside panels, somewhere to keep a little secret if you wanted to. I didn't think of it until after I'd made it, otherwise I'd have done one myself. This is again fixed inside, but doesn't need to be. And the little scissors, if I can twiddle them round, they go inside there. So you've got a lovely little workstation. And I've put count numbers on here. Now these refer to the numbers of the needles that we generally use for counted embroidery. And just a tip about that is the larger the number, the smaller the size, because it's often a bit confusing. And I'll show you those in a second. Now, if I grab this box and this box, now this one is quite new to us, really. This is done. It was really started because it's a considered expense buying a box of gold needles. It's a lot of money, and if you don't know you're going to stitch very much, it's, as I said, a considered purchase. So this seemed to be a lovely way of giving you an introduction to them. So these are the Jane Greenoff Cross Stitch Guild gold-plated needles, which are gold-plated in Coventry. I discovered them originally out in the United States and frankly thought it was bunkum. It was a little bit over the top until I used one, of course, and then realised that they were just a joy, and I've never used anything since. And that is, let me think, my daughter was 5 months old the day I discovered a gold needle, and she's 32 in a minute. So that gives you a clue. So in this box you get a pair of very good scissors, Italian scissors, and you get 2 size 24s and 2 size 26s. Now for cross stitch, this is what you need. This is, exactly what you need. I would suggest that you'd use a 24 on Aida fabric on 14 count, and you'd use a 26 on anything finer, 16 or 18 count, and either would work on even weave. so that you've got a nice starter kit really. So we call these the cross stitch essentials. They're in a nice box. And then this is the Pluperfect. So this was the second version, I think, of our special set, because we introduced the curved needle. Now that is really there for those of you who want to make up things like the box, like the pretty box, or books, where you're fiddling in corners and you can't quite get at it. The curved needle is invaluable. But the reason for buying this is that you've got size 28, 24 and 22. The 22 you'd use for Hardanger embroidery. And you've got a nice thick needle there for Hardanger. You've got one sharp needle. Now, sharps are not what we use because as someone who counts embroidery, what you're going to do is you're splitting the fibres of the fabric. Whereas if you're doing surface embroidery and you're working on very fine linen, you're piercing it, which is why we work with a blunt needle. The sharp is in there so that you can, I'm thinking of an example, easily make up your pincushion. A sharp would be very useful here where you're adding felt, because obviously the blunt needle just is hopeless. So having a sharp needle is great. And you've got one fine needle for adding beads. So it does make a really special set at $15.99. Now, what we say at the Cross Stitch Guild is that if the gold comes off, if you can prove your purchase, we'll replace them. Can't say more than that. When I investigated the business of gold plating needles, having been to America all those years ago, I spoke to my needle suppliers who fell about with laughter and weren't helpful at all. And so I spent a day, it was long before the internet, so I mean finding somebody was an afternoon on phones. And I found somebody in the Coventry area who was prepared to gold plate 1,000 needles for me. And he said, "How much gold do you want?" And I said, "Oh, I don't know. What does it come in?" I mean, I'd no idea. I'd never bought gold before. So he said, "Well," he said, "the Ministry of Defence have 2 microns of gold on their detonators for grenades." I said, "Well, I think I want that." "Oh," he said, "well, the gold won't come off." I said, "That's exactly what I want, because when I was in America trying those gold needles, I was given 2 sorts. I was given one that had been flashed in the gold and one that had been plated. And I stripped the flashed one in 45 minutes. And I couldn't bear that to happen. I couldn't bear it. So that was probably one of the most important business decisions I ever made when I was in charge of the original business, because they are the best, I believe. And if you're not pleased with them, we'll replace them. Can't say fairer than that, really. So gold needles, and I use them all the time. The posh reason is that the coefficient of friction is less with a gold needle, which to the rest of us just means the friction's less and they slide through the fabric. More importantly, I will often work with a number of needles. If I was working a border around a sampler, say like this sampler here, like the Carnation Sampler that we're going to refer to in a minute, if I was working this piece, I would probably have certainly 3 needles in operation, because I do have one with the green on, which I would then stitch and park out of the way. Then I'd have one with the lighter green on, which I'd stitch and park out of the way, and so on. Now, with a nickel-plated needle, they can mark your fabric. And if you forget and leave them and come back to it, you could have rust marks on your material, which don't always come out. With a gold-plated needle, that will never happen. So that's one reason. Another reason is, I don't know about you, but I find that my glowing, because a lady's not supposed to perspire, is she? When I'm a bit sweaty, I find that I strip the nickel off my needles very easily. With a gold-plated one, it never happens. And the other reason that I discovered by accident at a show, at a knitting and stitching show many years ago, when I demonstrated 178 French knots over a period of 4 days, that they slide off the end of the needle perfectly if you've got a gold one. They never stick. So I think they are, well, as I said, I haven't used a nickel-plated needle for 35 years, so what can I tell you? So let's go on. Now let's look at our black work. Now, the last time this was on air, it disappeared before I'd finished talking, so you've been warned. This is black work, and this one is in fact done in black, which is today less usual. Now I've got a picture here to show you, and this is actually a picture of Jane Seymour, the former wife of Henry VIII. And the detail is of the cuff of her dress. Now this was Elizabethan black work. And it was done as an embroidery technique, imitating lace. And so the wrong side would look the same as the right side. So that's why when you do holbein stitch, it requires a little thought, but it's not difficult. And the reason we call the stitch used holbein stitch, it's also called double running stitch, because Holbein the painter painted these pictures with the holbein, with the stitch on it, hence its name. And this was inspired by a visit to Warsaw. My husband and I were there last year, and we were in the marketplace, and marvellous, absolutely marvellous, humming with activity. And the houses were decorated as you see them in the picture. They were actually demonstrated like that, painted, and looked old. And when we investigated, of course, Warsaw had been flattened during the war, and all these places were reproductions. Quite fantastic, difficult to believe really. And it even used, because everything had been destroyed, or almost everything, there were no photographs or pictures. And so I'm told that the people rebuilding Warsaw used old Canaletto paintings to give them a clue what it looked like. Amazing, isn't it? Anyway, so this is my version of this block of houses in Warsaw. It was one of those things, you know, people say to me, where do you get your ideas? And I think, well, I don't know, I'm peeling potatoes and something comes. I can remember driving to Cirencester one day in the car, and I thought, Indian twist. Well, I've no idea where that came from, to this day. But by the time I got home, I got a range of little products called Indian twists. What can I tell you? Anyway, so I saw these buildings and it was a black work, you know, and I took lots of images of it, and here you are. And as I said, last time it was on air, it disappeared. So you've been warned. It's worked on even weave linen. And in here you can see, now the linen, you can just see the little orange marks at the top there. That shows you that this linen is made for us by Zweigart & Zawitsky, who is a firm in Germany, just near Stuttgart. And it's in a town called Sindelfingen, actually. And I have been to the factory, I think now 7 times, and watched the fabric, watched the process of linen being made from the linen thread arriving in the warehouse in great big cheeses, I think you'd call them, great big cones, and then seeing the linen coming off the looms at the end. And I've used their material for probably 30 years, and everything except the linen band we use comes from Zweigart & Zawitsky, because it's the best in the world. When the linen's made, you know, you spend hours. I'm not going to tell you how many hours I've spent. I don't know how many hours I've spent stitching. But if you put the time into something like this, and it's so pretty, and then when you come to mount it and framing, the fabric wasn't straight, and that certainly can happen if you buy inferior material. I've seen it, so I know it happens. Now, when Zweigart and Zawitsky do their fabrics, I mean, these are the same fabrics here. If you can try and imagine that 100 metres of this material, 170 centimetres wide, is on a great big roll, and it goes through a machine with starch and dressing in it that makes it absolutely straight. They're woven straight, so the warp and the weft are straight, I can give you an example. Now this might interest you, if I can find it. Give me a minute. Now, this is an old sampler, so I'm waxing lyrical now. Well, actually, this isn't an old sampler. Sorry, I'll start again. I owned the original of this sampler, and it was stitched in 1733, I think we'll find, as we scroll down to the bottom. 1777, I apologise. Mary Gollins. Mary Gollins stitched this, and the version I have is distinctly portrait in shape. This was stitched by the late Jane Napier on 57 count Kingston linen. She was a barn pot, frankly. She had to get special needles. Some of the silk she used was for making flies for fishermen to get it fine enough. Some of the little sheep down here are worked over one thread. So this shows you that even weave means not that there aren't going to be any bumps in the fabric, because there will be, but that the stitches will be square. Moira Blackburn, I'm sure some of you are familiar with her work. She makes wonderful samplers. She refers to putting a rabbit onto non-even weave fabric and turning it into a hare. That sort of explains how it stretches the stitches. Right, so going back to even weave again. So the fabric, as I said, you can tell it's Zygarde because of the orange stripe. And that's a lovely piece to work. And you're going to do something called double running stitch or Holbein stitch, which is not difficult. In fact, it's a combination of double running stitch and back stitch. If you do it all in back stitch, you will know that if you look at the back, it will not look at the same as the front because there is a loop, because you're doing that movement. When you work Holbein stitch, what you do is you go all the way that way in a running stitch, and then you come back again and fill in the gaps. So it looks the same, so when you turn them over. So if you're doing black work, for instance, on table linen, like a nice placemat or something, you would want that to be done in Holbein. And the back stitch is done when you get up a blind alley, because you've got to the end and you can't get back because... So you can see here, there will be occasions when the stitcher has actually turned round and come back again, but may have had to do a back stitch to get to the next row. I hope that makes some sense. So that's Holbein stitch or back stitch. Because this is a frame picture, you can get away with a bit more back stitch, but I didn't tell you that. Okay. Right, so I'm going to look now at the flower book. Now, as I mentioned in my intro just now, I have to tell you that I was a very unhappy rabbit. It was at the Festival of Quilts in Birmingham. I'm going to say 2 years ago, which probably means 4. And this piece of embroidery was lurking on the exhibition stand. We have a trolley or a tray at the front, rather like an old butler's table. And the things that people are going to need to see and feel before they want to spend 50, 60, 70 pounds are going to be here for them to handle. And I was getting more concerned about things going missing because a few pincushions had wandered. And so my lovely carpenter made us we call it the mouse house, but actually what it is a cupboard on wheels, but it's chicken wire in a frame with 3 shelves. And so everyone can see everything. We can hang things on it, but the things are inside and you asked to see them. Someone asked to see this with her friend and didn't give it back. So this is the flower book. Now it was designed as a class so that the group of people who did it first started with the cover, which is cross stitch on linen, not complicated, counted over 2 threads. In a second I'll show you how you do that. And then if I open up, the lining tells you what the different pages are going to be. And then you work through the book, starting with simple techniques and gradually getting a little more complicated. If I stand a little bit higher like that, you can see more clearly. There you are. How's that? And then, so this cross stitch there, and then if I just try and do this. Now you'll notice there's a little note at the bottom there, a little signature. Can you just see that? This is where I got home from the day the book was stolen, and I composed something for Facebook. And I rubbed it out 6 times so that I eventually could make something that was printable, and said that it had been stolen. By the time I returned from the fair on the Sunday night, the Cross Stitch Guild members had got together to get it restitched in time for the next fair 6 weeks later. This is the copy. This one was stitched for Jane Greenoff by her CSG friends. Brought me out in tears, you can imagine, can't you? In fact, they stitched another one as well, because there were so many people wanting to stitch the replacement, they stitched 2. So one's allowed to leave the building and one isn't. Black work again. Remember just now I was saying there's very traditional black work. When I said this was done in black this time, that's about these days we do this technique in colour as well, much more than we did. And it can be extremely pretty. And in fact, you can work it in a space-dyed thread where the thread colour is going to change. And it can be very effective. This is a CC work from a place in Italy, where the background's stitched rather than the pattern. This is Hardanger, which I'm going to talk to you about in a minute, from Norway. This is pattern darning. You see that? Now, I don't know about you lot, but I haven't darned a pair of socks since I was at school. I'm afraid I regard them as disposable. And so they get thrown out. But darning, you know, textiles, clothing was very valuable. Wasn't in a throwaway society in the 1800s. And so it was an important job to learn how to darn and to be able to darn. And then this is a hemstitch square with some hemstitch bands. Then this is pulled work. This sometimes causes quite a lot of confusion, I think, because there's pulled, drawn and cut work. So to sort of tell you the difference, if you can imagine, pulled thread embroidery, like this, is you don't take any threads out, you just pull tight. And in fact, I would actually put my embroidery there in a needlework frame, which I don't usually use. I'm a bit of a maverick. But this would be in a needlework frame or a hoop, so you could really pull, because what you're doing is making the holes, and it's the holes that are interesting rather than the stitches in this case. One of the things to bear in mind here is the reason that linen is used for these techniques is because rather than an easy care material, there are lots of cross-stitch fabrics out there that have got a man-made content, you know, viscose and polyester and all those things. Brilliant for babies' bibs, table linen and so on, because you can machine wash them. This is, the thing about linen is that it creases. My family refer to my rich wrinkles because I like linen and silk, and I'm always creased. You know, I say that I go around clutching a steam iron most of the year. So the thing about linen is, because it creases, you can make these interesting stitches and they stay made. If that had a high content of man-made, it wouldn't stay like that. So does that make sense? So that's the whole project. It's a considered purchase, I know, but the whole thing is for you. Now you've got your... Look at me, I'm coming out in goosebumps. It's ridiculous, I should get out more. Look at that, aren't they lovely? The colours just go so well together. They're pre-sorted, which you can see. So you can get home from work, it can be twilight, and you can still start your stitching because you haven't got to sort which green's which. And then we've got, this is the space-dyed silk I mentioned. This is 12 ply, so you're just going to use 2 lengths at a time. And some little beads. This is for the Hardanger embroidery, which I'm going to talk to you about. I'll do that next, in fact. So this is perlé thread, or pearl, depending on the manufacturer. This is a size 8, and this is a size 12, so a thicker and a thin. Got some lining material. You've got the cover fabric, Again, it's pure linen and the pages. And there are the different needles you're going to need for your project. Absolutely lovely. Now, I can imagine if you're a bit nervous, that look at all the instructions. And the whole point of this project is that you're going to work a page at a time, like a lesson. So when someone rings me up and says, I bought the flower book, and actually I've looked in the box and I'm a bit nervous, you say, put it all away except the cover, embroider the cover, it's cross-stitch on linen, nothing scary about it, put it in a drawer, do the next page and the next page, and so on, working through these acres of instructions and charts, look. Yeah? And then put it together at the end. So you get a nice bite-sized chunk to work at a time. The flower book, it is lovely. I've seen lots finished, lots personalised with favourite flowers added and different sayings and things put inside them. One lady, she rang me to say she'd had it in her work bag at her side here, and somehow or other an apple cord fallen in her bag, which she didn't unpack when she got home because, you know, she got home, put the kettle on, got dinner ready, blah, blah, blah. Went to get it out, and there's this disgusting stain on the back of her stitching because she washed it, I think twice, 3 times, wouldn't come out. Anyway, she's done the most wonderful furry maggot. She stitched it, big caterpillar, covering the stain. Absolutely brilliant. Well, it just shows you that that's the exciting thing about things that are counted, you know, because there's no printing on the fabric. So it doesn't really matter what I've said you should do, you can do your own thing. So if there's a stitch or a technique in something you're doing and you think, oh, I'm not going to do that, you can just leave it and put something else in the place. That's what's so clever about it. Now, I mentioned Hardanger, so I'm going to reach for the book, because this is quite important to me, this book. You know, for years I was published by book publishers. Now my husband and I publish our own. Long story, won't bore you. But because the book industry generally, as you know, I'm sure, is in some disarray, with well-known establishments beginning with A, selling books at much less, it said, you know, I won't go into all that. And I wanted to do a book about Hardanger because, as a general rule, people are petrified of it. And actually, all you've got to be able to do is count to 4. It's not difficult. It just looks so clever. And I'm afraid I'm a great believer and lover of things that make people think you're clever. Each one is signed by herself. And the reason I'm going to turn the pages like this is to get to a certain page. So if the camera team don't have a heart attack yet, there is a reason for this. As I'm going through, I've talked a little about the history and about the fact that the technique is not new, but it's also very much used today. Now, this is the national costume of the Norwegian people. That's where the technique comes from. It's called Hardanger after the fjord, by that name, and the area, enormous area of Norway called Hardanger. And it is a lacy pattern used predominantly on the women's white aprons they wear over their woolen dresses or skirts. And it's on the cuffs, collars, shirts, etc. And it's very much still worn today, in spite of modern fashion and all the things that have changed in tradition. If you have a family gathering like a christening, a wedding, you would wear your family costume, all of you. And I love the idea that you don't have to fret about what you're wearing to a wedding, because you wear the same thing. The technique is not scary, but because you're going to cut the fabric after you've stitched it, people get very nervous. So what we did with this book is we took you bite-sized pieces. So you make that stitch. You can see how simple that is. It's 5 straight stitches. And there they are. You see that quite clearly? I hope you can. And then you change direction with your needle and you make another 5. Yes? And so you're going to work round this shape. There's the knot on the end still. Can you see that? Now this picture shows me running my needle across the fabric to check that I've got that one opposite that one. Yes? Good. And then how you travel on the back, that's quite an important one because this needle is going through the tunnel, not down the side, because if you're going to cut there, you could cut that thread. So you see we've done it really hand-holding because, I mean, I remember my first piece of Hardanger and I thought, I don't need to use all that thread. Good Lord, I could make Christmas cards with all the waste. And then I cut it off and it fell off. So it was wrong. So now I know. So you make your box shape, and if you look at that box now, you'll see that vertical's opposite vertical, horizontal's opposite horizontal, and so on. Now that applies if it was a 15-metre table runner. They would still have to be opposite each other. And then this is going to tell you how the fabric is cut, what you're left with, and how you decorate it. So once you've done this, you've done your little lesson, but you're actually going to make it into that little scissor keep there, which you can then put on your scissors. And then there are a number of other projects in here for you to do, including this lovely bag, which will take your needle book, pin cushion, scissor keeper and biscuit new. There you are. And they're all signed. I've been to the Hardanger area. I'll give a plug for something now. Not that they need me to do that. There's a hotel on the Hardanger fjord called the Ullandsvang. Look it up. Grieg used to practice his music in a hut in the grounds. See, goosebumps again. While I'm on books, we'll just mention this one. This happened because my cross-stitcher's Bible went out of print, and it was out of print a while. I also was very aware that I'm at my desk beavering away, you know, and I think, right, I'm going to do a hem. And I go, right, I'm going to do... Which way do I usually start? Because if you don't do that stitch all the time, you very quickly forget. And I thought that something with just a... I'm just trying to find a nice example for you. Just a stitch on a page in alphabetical order. So when you want to find something that you haven't stitched for ages, French knot, they haunt me. 4-sided stitch. So this is actually the 4th edition of this book that was a stopgap. It's been so popular, this is the 4th and final edition, and I say that advisedly because I wanted it to be ring bound so that when you're working from it, it would just lie really flat on your thing. I wanted a bit of room in it so you could scribble if you wanted to. This is the most pages I can get in this size ring binding. So I've decided that that's what you're going to get. So this is the book, it's signed. And to give you an idea, we've got the stitches. We've got Hardanger embroidery in detail again. That's been redone since we did the Hardanger book. So because we had so much more to tell you. We've got all about hem stitching. Different sorts of hem stitches for bands, for decorative patterns, for going around the edge of your book, and so on. Additional techniques, things like how to make up a biscuit new. We'll talk about that in a minute. How to make up a watt bow. how to frame a picture, how to make a twisted cord. Now a twisted cord I am referring to is this. See if I can do this without knocking everything flying. There we go. That's a twisted cord, which you can make out of the threads left over in your embroidery. So they're always useful because you can use all sorts of things. So there's all those things are in here as well. There's what we call our needle guide. Now that's a clever trick, and that was an accident again really, because I have a box of gold needles on my desk, and actually they're not all one size anymore, and it does become challenging sometimes. So we have a life-size chart in your book of what each needle is, so you can put a needle on it and check. So when you're stuffed, you can't work it out. You've got some suggested reading and an alphabetical index. So there you are. That's the stitch book. And I'm pretty sure that is taken from one of my designs from a long time ago now called Charlie's Secret Garden. So it's full of lovely stitches. These are all drawn for us by a wonderful cross-stitch. Well, he's not the cross-stitch guild designer. He does do it. He obviously has he does Grey's Anatomy as well. To put this in perspective, twice he's designed Grey's Anatomy. I mean, how long did it take to draw a pancreas? I can only imagine. Anyway, but he's done these for us. He's invented this for us so that you can actually see where the needle goes. The fabric's on there too, because all the books I learnt from in the early days didn't have the fabric, and you had to guess where to put your needle. Now I'm going to talk about the little rose biscornu next. Right, now I've got 2 packets here, and there is a reason for that. Ooh, stay. Thank you. So this one is available on 2 fabrics, and this is where I'm going to explain the difference between the fabrics and the threads. So this is linen, and you need 2 pieces, and I bet this isn't open. Right, I'm going to use my needlework scissors, which you didn't see me do, because I want to show this to you because it's important. Oops. Okay. And this is Aida material. Now, if you look at it, you should be able to see the difference. Remove that whisker. Ooh. Come. There. So, what we've got here is a squared fabric, quite visibly square, the boxes. So what's happened there is when they manufacture that material, there, you see? That's it. When you manufacture that, it's woven in 4s. So there's 4 wafts and 4 wefts. So it gives a definite hole in the corner. Now this is called Aida after the opera. It's known as Aida by everybody. And this particular version of it is a particularly nice one because this is actually made of linen, just to confuse you completely. So this is Aida fabric made of linen. Linen is the flax plant. That's what linen is. It's made from flax. It's an extraordinarily strong fibre. For those of us of a certain age out there, it also absorbs an enormous amount of water before it feels damp. Now, I don't know if you have the odd hot flush, but trust me, linen is the way forward. Here's linen that's woven as an even weave material. So you could work this on either of them. So if you've never stitched before, you only just discovered what stitching from a chart means today, and you've been mystified in the past, then that might be easier for you. As I said, I learnt on this, on linen, because I didn't know about that. That's the only reason. And it's become something I make a bit of a fuss of, really. So, you're going to work, to make this, you're going to work the pattern twice. Now I've got it here to show you because it makes it easier to see. Yeah. So that's the pattern. The chart is in fact in black and white, but you can see that's the same as that. All right. So you're going to work 2, and notice they're squares. And I did this just to show you how this goes together because it's such a clever little shape. Oh, it's got another whisker on it. I must dust occasionally. There we are. So this is nicely well stuffed. I think they're, personally this is, I mean, I think they're nice, well stuffed, and I like the button in the middle, pulling them together. I think it makes them very attractive. But looking at the picture there, you can see what I'm about to show you, I'm sure. When you come to put this together, if this was the fabric, you join like that. Okay, you see that? If I turn like so. So in other words, the middle of this one goes to the corner of this one, sorry, goes to the middle of that one. And if I fold this for you, I mean, you can't quite do it with paper, but it will make some sense to you. What I'm actually going to do is that. Yes? All the way around. So a corner to the middle and all the way around. And the trick as you're making them up is actually to line up your first one, thread your needle with the same colour that the border stitched in, and try and get that corner exactly right, and ditto. Because if you wander, when you get to the end, you won't have enough room to finish it off properly. So you've got your buttons, the pattern, you've got these are not pre-sorted because the colours can easily be sorted, but you have got a card from the Guild with the emergency phone number on, should the cat get the threads, or worse happen to it, or you throw coffee over your drink, or whatever it is, and then you can sort your threads onto your card, and away you go. So the only decision you've got to make is whether you want to work on linen or on the Aida material. I'll just slide these back or I shall get quietly shot later. Again, this fabric is made by Zweigart, as I've mentioned before. They are understood to be the inventors of the Aida fabric. It's not modern, it was 1920 something. They came up with Aida fabric for people to stitch. You know, although it's obviously, how can I put this? It's easier if you've never stitched before, I think, and I'm told by people who are learning on it that they find it so, because you can see that one square on here is one square on the squares, and it's very simple. With the linen, you're counting over 2 threads, so it is a slightly different concept. I don't see the threads anymore, I see squares. So I can stitch on linen quite quickly, but that's after a lot of practice, obviously. So that's your biscornu. Right, now we've got the Carnation Sampler to talk about next. There we are. Now this goes back to what we were saying about samplers again. And do we know what they are? Now this, I suppose, is what people sort of expect. If you go through something like a Laura Ashley catalogue or similar retailers, she said quickly, the stylist who did the photography will probably have put a sampler on one of the walls. If the stylist was careless, she'll have put it on 2 of the walls, because I've found them, because I can smell them. I've collected for the last 30 years. And I am absolutely fascinated about the whole concept of a sampler. So what you would see would be a border, an alphabet, a house, probably a pair of trees, some decorative motifs, and a child's name. And that's what people tend to think of as a sampler. And there are tea towels out there. There have been, Marks and Spencer's have done china with samplers on. when the Fitzwilliam Museum was having the amazing exhibition of their extremely important collection, they had lots of stationery, and that's what you expect as a sampler. Now, in fact, it's a modern version of a sampler, as in Victorian or late 1700s, early 1800s. I'm going to give you some other examples now. Now, I haven't brought a band sampler with me today, but I have brought this one. Now, this has got glass on it, which I know is presenting difficulties, but I'll do my best. So this was stitched by a little girl called Catherine Archer when she was at the Muller Orphanage in Bristol. Now, she's born in Shotley in Northumberland. We know she went into the orphanage in 1865 when she was 7. When she was 7. That's what we know about her. Now, her parents were farming labourers in Shotley in Northumberland, and her mother died of puerperal fever, so that would have been 6 to 7 weeks after she was born. And her father kept her till she was 3. We don't know what happened to him. And then she somehow got from Northumberland to go into Bristol orphanage when she was 7. She probably couldn't understand anybody, if you think about the difference in dialects then. So she stitched this between 1865 and 1875. It's worked on 75 count fabric. Later on, in a later programme, I'm going to show you this again with something stitched on what I call a modern fabric. So this is also a sampler. So what it meant, what a sampler meant, was that originally it was an example or exemplar. And early exemplars, I have a friend who has one from 1649. I've tried to steal it, but she always knows when I've got it in my bag. It's so long and so wide. So the selvages are that far apart, so the fabric was woven that wide. And these samplers were made so that if you saw a pattern or stitch that you liked, you'd work a row of it, or 2 rows of it, and then you'd roll it up and put it away, and then you'd get it out again, and then you do another example. And then when you needed to refer to these samplers, they'd be rolled up in a drawer. I have seen a woodcut once of a drawer full of rolled samplers. I can only imagine what that collection would be worth now. A band sampler has exchanged hands in the United States for $1 million. Now, an early one. They do fetch. They're collectors, museum quality band samplers are really difficult to find now, and are serious money. But they were never meant to be hung. You know, they weren't intended to hang on a wall as a picture. They were rolled up and kept as a work of reference, and that's where the sampler comes from. And then gradually it was young women learning to stitch and show their expertise. There was rich children with servants stitching in silk, and there were 60 kids in a school working in wool and on canvas. All those different combinations come into it. And so I think the whole genre of the sampler is fascinating. So this one was designed as a standalone project. I think I could have done some other little bits and pieces to go with it, actually, because I'm very, very fond of it. It's done in cross stitch, but a few extra tweaks. Nothing technical. It's worked on linen. Here's the colours, everybody. Now they're pre-sorted. Now this is all about you getting home from work or finishing what you're doing and thinking, right, I'm going to get cracking, and telling the difference between some of these colours. You know, this is a better example, actually. Look at that little bundle there. It's quite challenging to actually decide which is which. So they're pre-sorted for you. So you just go for it. So they're all ready to go, and I'll show you a little trick in a second with these threads. linen, and this is your chart. I'm having to keep a little bit of an eye on the time because I've talked too much as usual. Here we go, look. Lovely chart to work from. I mean, the technology now, you know, when you think I drew them all with a rotary pen on graph paper and used Tipp-Ex and sometimes cut out little squares and stuck them on and then took photocopies of them. That's how it started. And we've got this glorious technology now. I mean, it makes my job so much easier. Someone said to me, now that you've got a cross-stitch programme, what do you do with your spare time? It just means that I can spend lots of time perfecting the house, right? And then I can move it around, or even more so, I can spend time perfecting what I want here, and I can just flip it. It's not about it producing the designs for me, it's about taking the repetition out. In the old days, if I drew a bunch of grapes and I knew I had to repeat them 47 times in 4 directions, they would be quite simple drawings. Now I could spend a morning designing the bunch of grapes, knowing I've only got to cut and paste. So that's where it's all changed. So this is your chart. For those of you unfamiliar with the whole concept of counting, you're going to fold your fabric in 4, start in the middle, and start in the middle on the chart. So I'm sadly going to run out of time in a minute, which is a swizzle because I could have continued for another hour. But never mind, I'll be back again shortly with more gorgeous things for you. Do remember to check out the website. Oh, and I must mention, I've been told I have permission to mention that for my 70th birthday, and I know I don't look it, say nothing, any of you, I've got a new website which was launched on the great day. So go and hunt me down. Thanks, everybody. See you soon.
And thank you, Jane. I hope we do see you soon. Christine sent a message on Facebook saying, I love Jane Greenoff and all her wonderful embroidery, plus the history lessons. It is really fascinating, isn't it? And Christine, did you get your bacon sandwich? If there's anything from the hour that you'd like to order, now's the time to do it. So you can order on sewingstreet.com or on the phone lines down there on 0800 001 4433. So if you do have anything in your basket, I know Jane's been fascinating to listen to, then do go through to check out now, because we're going to give you around about 2 or 3 minutes while we get ready for the next show. We're going to be looking at the Elna 680, and I've made friends with the Overlocker. So we'll see you again in a couple of minutes.
Hello and welcome. We love hearing from you, and we really hope that you can follow us on our social media platforms. We've got Instagram, which is @SewingStreet. We have Facebook. We've got 2 Facebook pages. One is the Sewing Street TV page, and the other one is Sewing Street Fans. All 3 of these are monitored all the time by our wonderful team, and if you want to message us on air, drop us a line on either of those 3 and we'll definitely be able to answer your questions that you may have. If you post on the actual wall, we can perhaps answer there. Otherwise, message us as well. That works really, really well. Thank you so much for being involved, and it's only because of this community that we're able to bring you all these different diverse products and to be able to answer your questions that you may have. Another way you can stay in touch with us is by signing up to our newsletter. These newsletters are sent out to you very regularly, and they include not only our guest profiles of upcoming guests, but also amazing shows that we've got coming up for you. And if you want to look at the amazing products before everybody else, that's the best way to do it. If you'd like to sign up and you haven't already, the link to follow is www.sewingstreet.com/sign up. You won't regret it. Thank you.
Hello there, I'm Debbie Shaw, and I would love you to join me on the first Monday of every single month for Sewing Street Surgery. Now, this is a dedicated hour where I answer your questions, and that could be questions about techniques, it could be questions about tools, it could be questions about new products, or maybe something that you've seen that you just don't understand. There's a lot of questions about tensions on sewing machines, and there's a lot of questions about working with different weights of fabrics. So if you have a question that you'd like to ask me, the easiest way to bring a question over to us is to go to our Facebook page and post your question on there. I will collate all of those questions throughout the week. If we need any new products for you, or if we need any new demonstrations, those will all be worked on leading up to that first Monday of the month. So do join me, Debbie Shaw, on Sewing Street Surgery on the first Monday.
Would you like to take part in our weekly competition? If you do, then all you have to do is head to the Sewing Street fan page group on Facebook. Post your picture of your make. Myself, Debbie Shaw, and John Cole Morgan love looking at all of your makes every week. We pick our favourite and announce the winner every Friday live on the show. Happy sewing and good luck.
Hello there, welcome back again. Now this show we're going to be looking at the Elna 680, one of our most popular sewing machines, certainly amongst the designers and guests we have here on Sewing Street. But I just wanted to give you a reminder of our Elna air threading overlocker, because I had a bit of an issue yesterday. It was fighting back. And I'm taking no nonsense, so I came in this morning, gave us a good talking to, rethreaded it, and it worked first time. If you hadn't seen the show, just to warn you with this machine that over half of the stock is sold out. If you've ever thought about buying an overlocker before and the first thing you think is, oh, but that threading. Well, look at what you're going to be tackling here. And now I know you're looking at this thinking, oh, look at the threading. But this is actually the simplest way to thread an overlocker. This is the machine that I have at home. So this side, don't worry about at all. It is perfectly safe with the door open. The machine is not going to work. This is purely so that you can clean inside it. So you just give that a dust every now and again. So you don't need to worry about that side. So this side looks a little bit easier to tackle, doesn't it? And it is, because basically with an overlocker, this is a 4-thread overlocker. You'll have 2 needle threads, and you have an upper looper and a lower looper, which are your underneath threads, which wrap around the edge of your fabric, while at the same time there's a blade here, which is trimming off excess fabric. Normally the threading system on an overlocker is quite complicated, but with an air threader, all you're going to do, I shan't do it now, is to take your right thread, your end thread through this end here, and you pump it. And that shoots the thread with a gust of air all the way through the pipework and out through its appropriate channel. Then the same with the second along thread. So you need to do these in order. So I've actually put different colours in here so that you can see the role of each colour. So give that a pump, through it goes. And then these two, the final two here, the yellow and the red, are your needle threads. And you've got a needle threader for each one of those twin needles as well. So it is really, really easy to thread. Chances are, as you're sewing, you probably won't need to change thread for a long, long time, because you tend to buy overlocker thread on cones, which last you for a long time. You don't need to use the 2 needle threads. You could just use 1, and that will give you a narrower or a wider hem depending on which needle you remove, and that can save you a bit of thread as well. You can quite happily sew for most of your sewing and dressmaking projects on 3 thread, unless you're sewing through very heavy or a loose weave fabric, in which case you'll need a stronger seam, and then you go for the 4 thread. That is the kind of seam that you're aiming for. So again, you can see, let me zoom right in on this one for you. I can go right in there, and I haven't even lost focus. So the white and the yellow threads are the needle threads. So you can see 2 needles sewing in 2 straight lines. The red thread and the blue thread are your upper and your lower loopers, and you get a perfect join on top of your fabric. And those threads, as you can see, are wrapped around. So it trims back so you have a perfect seam, and well, you can adjust this as well, and it's stretched. So if you're sewing with jersey and stretch fabrics or very fine fabrics, then this is perfect for you. I'll show you in just a second, but this machine has a differential, so you can adjust the rate at which the 2 feed dogs feed the fabric through. So if you adjust the feed dogs, or adjust the differential so that the back feed dog is working faster than the front, it'll pull the fabric through quicker than it's being fed, and you'll have a really pretty frill. You'll have a lettuce effect, and you can do that with a rolled hem. So again, if you have fine fabrics like chiffons, or you can get some beautiful kind of rayon, really lightweight dressmaking fabric, this kind of thing. I wonder if that's got a... No, it hasn't even got a rolled hem. I didn't make this one. But this kind of fabric, You don't have to have a hem on it. You can do a very, very fine stitch. And that rolled hem is overlocked and trimmed. You can still use the blade to about 1 millimetre. So you can create a frill. You can also create a gather by altering the differential in the opposite extreme. So the front feed dogs are pushing the fabric into the system before the second feed dogs are pulling them out. So you get too much fabric in there and that creates a gather. But I'm set at the moment just on a regular 4-thread stitch. The speed of this, if you like to sew at speed, if you're doing a lot of dressmaking, if you're making curtains or large items, you're sewing at about 1250 stitches a minute. And again, you're trimming back at the same time as you're sewing. You'll always stitch off a chain. So unlike with a sewing machine that doesn't like to be used without fabric, your overlocker needs to be used without fabric because you should have a chain on each end of your thread. You can thread that onto a needle now and then simply rethread it by hand back into the seam. If you just chop it off, your stitches at the end may fray a little bit, so just take your time to go back over by hand. Every time you use a new piece of fabric, so every time you're changing your fabric, do a test piece first, because although I have never changed the settings on this machine and I've sewn lots of different fabrics and I've had the perfect stitch, sometimes you may find the stitches a little bit loose or the looping threads don't loop over, well, they're too tight or they're too loose, so you may need to adjust the tension slightly. Now the differential is on the side here. So on the outside, this is your hand wheel. On the outside here is your stitch length, and this is the differential. So if I whack it up, or go all the way down, sorry, to 0.5, that's its shortest length, that's going down, and that will create a wave. So that's adjusted now, the speed at which the feed dogs are drawing the fabric through. This looks a lot nicer with 3 needles, I have to say, but I haven't got much time in this machine, so we'll just do 2. We will do 2, sorry. Your foot pedal gone. Oh, where have you gone? There you are. And I'm going to encourage that stretch. Come on out. By pulling, I've just got that wrapped around the blade. Let me just chop it off. Oh, it was going so well. Out you come. I'm going to encourage the stretch by actually pulling at the fabric at the same time. Using left-handed scissors with the right hand doesn't work, does it? So let's push that under the end of the foot. And away we go. So again, it seems to be sewing a little bit slower because it's doing a different job now. So again, I'm stretching this a little bit, not enough to pull against the needle. I'm literally just stretching the fabric. And that is going to help with the frill. Oh, now then my blue's come undone, hasn't it? Oh, blue's not tight enough. One of them's come undone. I think we're okay. And then to gather on the opposite extreme, I'm then going to loosen the differential or take it up all the way to number 2. And this time, you're going to get the front. In fact, I'm going to put the stitch length right up as well because that tends to help. There we go, that's a lot quicker. So now the front feed dog is feeding that through quicker than the back one, and that creates a really lovely gather as well. That's also a nice technique if you find you do get a bin on the front to catch your threads as well. I'm in the habit of not using them. I don't at home either. Just clean up my mess. I'm not in tomorrow, so I like to leave it reasonably tidy for whoever's taking over. You can use that effect with the differential as well. If you find that when you're sewing, even on cotton fabric, maybe the stitches tend to pucker a little bit, that's not necessarily a tension problem, that could be the differential. So you can then stretch the puckers out a little bit by altering the differential down so that the feed dogs stretch the fabric a little bit to flatten it as it goes through. Have a play with it when you get it home. You can do 3-thread, 4-thread, rolled hem, flat lock seams with this. There are more feet available if you have a look on the Elna website. You have a 2-year warranty with this machine. You're £699. have a look around at air thread overlockers and compare prices. I have the Genoma version of this. I've had it for a couple of years now, and back then I paid £850 for it, and it's been worth every penny for me. It's not going to replace your sewing machine, but it will take over a lot of jobs of your sewing machine. You can use this as a seam if you're dressmaking, so you don't have to go through two processes with the sewing machine of sewing the seam and then finishing the seam. This can sew and finish the seam, but be aware that your seam allowance may differ a little bit. So it will play a really important role in your sewing room, particularly if you're dressmaking. So if you'd like to order again, it's 0800 001 4433, 2-year warranty from Elna, remember, British-based company, very nice people. Or you can have a look at all of the spec and more details on our website on sewingstreet.com. Now, if you have any tool-related questions, if you have overlocker-related questions or sewing machine-related questions, remember, on the 1st of every month, the next one's on the 1st of June, I'm going to bring you a sewing surgery, so you can pop your questions onto our Sewing Street Facebook page right now if you wish, and I'll spend an hour on the 1st of June just answering as many questions as I can. So let's have a look at a few more details. Hello there, I'm Debbie Shaw, and I would love you to join me on the first Monday of every single month for Sewing Street Surgery. Now, this is a dedicated hour where I answer your questions, and that could be questions about techniques, it could be questions about tools, it could be questions about new products, or maybe something that you've seen that you just don't understand. There's a lot of questions about tensions on sewing machines, and there's a lot of questions about working with different weights of fabrics. So if you have a question that you'd like to ask me, the easiest way to bring a question over to us is to go to our Facebook page and post your question on there. I will collate all of those questions throughout the week. If we need any new products for you, or if we need any new demonstrations, those will all be worked on leading up to that first Monday of the month. So do join me, Debbie Shaw, on Sewing Street Surgery on the first Monday. So again, the next one's going to be on the 1st of June, so get your questions in now and come along and join me. And it can be anything: sewing related, tools related, machine related, tension related. Poor old tension gets the blame for everything. So do that before the 1st of June, just in case I need to buy anything in or get any specific tools to explain for you, so I'm not rushing around on the day. Okay, we're going to look at the Elna 680 sewing machine now. This one, actually, we've got a special offer for you, which is unique to Sewing Street. We have a 5-year warranty on this machine for the rest of the stock that we have here. When the 5-year warranty stock sells out, hopefully we'll still have the sewing machine for you, but it won't have that 5-year warranty. Normally you pay extra for that, and I think it's about £60. So that's a good deal for you. So let's have a quick tour around. I know there's a lot of different sewing machines on the market, and certainly even on our website, with lots of different spec. And they all have an important role to play in the marketplace, but they all have their differences. So this one has 170 stitches. It's a computerised sewing machine. You don't need to use the foot pedal with it because you have a speed control at the front and a start-stop button. You've also got the thread snipper function on this one as well, which a lot of people like that. If you come on up to the top, all of your threading systems in here, and your stitches are here right in front of you. So just really briefly, we've got different chapters or different modes to choose from. So the first one is going to be utility stitches, which are the ones you use most of all. We've got buttonhole stitches, stretch buttonhole stitches, mending stitches. This is an interesting one. If you ever wondered what number 3 was for, which is just a box. If you're hand sewing a buttonhole, you can make to measure, because you'll measure your button, you'll add 1/8 of an inch to the size of your button, you'll draw the line where you're going to hand sew your buttonhole, then you will make a strengthening stitch around the edge of your buttonhole and sew over the top of it. And you can do that in the machine with this one. It's really clever. You can sew buttons on, you can mend tears in clothing, you can make eyelets. These are lovely stitches for applique. decorative stitches, quilting stitches, so stitching in the ditch, and heirloom stitches, doing drawn work with a ladder stitch maybe, lovely smocking stitches so you can create decorative effects like that. So again, these are all utility. As you come down here, these are decorative stitches. You can, might have a go with that later, do cording with these stitches. You don't get a cording foot, but we'll have a go with a satin stitch and see what happens. That's a nice little stitch for quilting. It'll just do one individual stitch. And these are satin stitches, which you can extend by up to 5 times without distorting the stitch. And you can see down here we've got the alphabet in a couple of different languages. Over this side, decorative. And some beautiful stitches. These are called faggoting stitches, so they can join 2 pieces of fabric together. These are quite nice for quilting. So if you're stitching in the ditch, as in stitching over an existing seam, all you see is the lines going out the side. Same with these. Anyone with a straight line down the side like that. And again, all decorative stitches. Novelty. I've got cars and a helicopter, little houses there. I love the sewing related ones. Needle and thread and the bobbins and the scissors. You've got a memory on the machine as well, so you can store a series of different stitches if you wanted to. And to choose those stitches, we've kind of gone backwards around here, haven't we? There's the panel on the front here. So you simply choose your mode. It'll automatically go into mode 1, which is utility. If I go into mode 2, those are decorative, and then modes 3, 4, 5 and 6 are your alphabet and your numbers. So if I wanted to choose said thread and needle, that's number 83. It'll give you a picture of what the stitch is going to look like as it's stitched out. It'll set the stitch length and the stitch width. If you wanted to adjust those and override the setting, you can do. Recommend which foot you use, and at the moment the foot pedal's plugged in. I did say you don't need to use it, so if I unplug the foot pedal, that icon will disappear. Let's pop it back in again because I'm going to use it. We have, that's your memory button, so you can store a whole series of different pieces together. Let's have a look in the settings as well. If you don't like that beeper, you can take it on and off, which is brilliant. Do you know, I've not been in settings before. Let's have a look what else we've got in there. I'm quite new to this machine, to be honest. Oh, you can lock it as well. So instead of switching the machine off, if you've got youngsters in the house and you don't want them playing with it, or I tell you what happens in my house quite a lot. My machine will stop automatically with the foot in the down position, which means if you put your foot on the foot pedal, it'll sew. So even if I'm nowhere near the sewing machine, the dog probably is, and she likes to sit underneath the table. So if I'm at my PC, I can hear the machine start, and it's quite spooky, but it's not, it's the dog just sat on there. So get into a good habit of when you finish sewing or you walk away from the machine, just press lock, and then just press it back on again when you're ready to sew. Now feet-wise, we've got feet in here. I love a compartment. I love a box of goodies and lots of extras that come with the machine. This is an interesting little one, which obviously hasn't been used before. It's a pin. And this one, you can stick in a little hole. There are 2 little holes on the bed of the machine, and that will help you sew into a circle. That's exclusive to Elna. Over here we have, that's the standard foot actually. There is the over edge foot on the machine at the moment. So I'm going to take that off. So the standard foot will be on your machine when you get it home, and that looks like that. Ooh, flying out. This one is, no, that's your over edge stitch, apologies. Your over edge foot, you do have over edge stitches on the machine, so if you don't want to go for your overlocker, or you're not in the market for an overlocker, you can get a similar kind of look, but of course this doesn't trim off the edges of your fabric. We have a rolled hem foot, so you can create tiny rolled over twice hems that will be about 1/8 of an inch or just over 1 millimetre in length. And then you've got your zipper foot, you expect to get that one. And you have a satin stitch foot, which is a clear view. And this has bars on the bottom that helps to raise the foot away from satin stitches, which are quite dimensional, so it doesn't squish them. So those are your most used feet. There is also a walking foot included, so great for quilters and curtain makers. We have a free motion embroidery foot. We have a free motion embroidery foot with a dish on the bottom. So this is great if you're going to embroider over fabrics that have a pile on them, because it squishes the pile as you sew. But it's also got 1/4 inch markings. So if you wanted to hand quilt maybe echo quilting, and you need to follow a 1/4 inch guideline. You've got that one. We have the buttonhole foot. There's a guide that goes underneath the buttonhole foot, like so, if you're sewing through very thick fabrics. So if you're putting a button onto a coat, you put your fabric in between those two pieces, and it helps to stop the fabric from slipping. And we have a couple of seam guides as well. These are going to help you sew in a straight line. They go on the back of your presser foot, the ankle of your sewing machine, and then you use this as a guide to help to sew in a straight line. So let's put the straight foot back on there again. I think that's everything you get. You get an awful lot. And remember, you've got your peace of mind of your 5-year guarantee with this one, and a really comprehensive instruction book. Always worth reading through this, even if you think, oh no, I just sew, I don't need to know all of these kind of things. Because different manufacturers have different recommendations and different settings. But there's also some tricks and ideas as to how you're going to use the stitches, how you make a buttonhole, zip insertion. This is quite a handy thing as well. Sometimes when you're using a darning stitch or a mending stitch or on buttonholes, they can go a little bit, what's that, a parallelogram-ish. It's a word. So you can adjust it so that it goes from a bit skew-if to square again. Yeah, and just what all the different feet are for. So it's worth having a look at that. There's troubleshooting in there as well, as and when you need it. Have we got a thread? Yes, we do, but we're peach. I'll rethread it with something a little bit brighter, excuse my back, so that we can see where the stitches are. Oh, that's where it is. You've got a stylus as well, so you're not putting fingerprints all over here. So let's pop a new thread on here. So, it comes with a knee lifter as well, which is great for free motion embroidery, if you haven't used one before. Goes into the front of the machine here, and then as you're sitting sewing, you can kind of move your knee across and the foot goes up and down. So as you're free motion embroidering, you don't have to move your hands off the quilt, or maybe you don't want to let go of your work while you're sewing. Then use the knee lifter instead. I don't tend to use one of those, but you do have it. There's also an extension table with it, which is huge. So just like with a regular sewing machine, all of your directions for the threads are on the top. This is a presser foot pressure dial. So if you're sewing very heavy fabrics, you may want to lift the pressure off the foot a little bit to help the fabric glide under the foot. And if you're sewing very fine fabrics, you may want to increase the pressure to help the fabric, or to stop the fabric from gliding under the foot quite as quickly. Right, in you go. Oh, now then, this one. You need to click the thread up to one side, and then you go across the front of the needle thread. There again, it's all got labels on it, and just snip that off at the side here. And then your needle threader comes down, lets go of the thread, and asks you to do it all over again. So in there, in you go. It has to click in. I'll put the foot down will help. When the foot's down, your tensions are engaged. So it's easier to pull the thread taut, that's it, over the top of there, through the threader. Down we go. Tiny little, like hair-like hook comes through the eye of the needle, grabs hold of the thread and pushes it through. And then we're ready to go. If you've got any questions, by the way, you want to see anything specific, Dawn's had the Elna 680 Plus for 2 weeks. He says she's a beauty to work with and your demos are invaluable. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to be doing a bit of gathering in a bit, because we bring you so many of these different machines, and I just thought rather than, oh, here's one stitch and here's another stitch, we'll actually have a play with some different techniques. Oh, and I was going to have a go at cording with the foot, wasn't I? You have to tell me what I've forgotten I said that I'd do, because I do that all the time. You're going to sew through 2 layers of fabric, because it's rarely that you sew through one. And I've got that, let's take that out. So I'm not going to use the foot pedal. I'll put that up there. And I did adjust that, didn't I? Because I was playing with it. That'll do. Okay, and press start and see what happens. I'd always recommend that, oh, that's slow, there we go. I'd always recommend that you stitch out decorative stitches on a scrap piece of fabric first of all, because it's okay looking at the picture when you're looking at a straight line that's been drawn, looks very different to a straight line that's been stitched, and you'll be surprised at the size. I didn't expect the needle to be so big on that one. I thought it'd be a tiny stitch, and it's not, it's actually rather large. Now, as I stopped that, I don't think you saw, instead of pressing the stop button, I pressed the lock button. And when you press the lock button, that will stop at the end of the stitch. So I didn't stop halfway through the needle, I've stopped right at the end of the stitch. So nothing worse is you stop halfway through, you take the work out, there's no way you're going to get it back in there again to continue the stitch line in the same direction. Let's have a little play with some of the embroidery threads actually from the early bird this morning. I've already broken into them, so I may as well carry on. So if you missed out, by the way, it's a thread box with bobbins so that you can decant your embroidery thread onto the bobbins, and that keeps you organised in the box, and you're getting 10 threads as well. Can't guarantee which ones you're going to get, but you will get 10. Let's have a go with 3 of them. With a cording foot, which this doesn't have, but you can buy them, it will have 3 grooves or 5 grooves underneath it, which allows things like embroidery thread or yarns to be threaded through the foot and sew evenly. So without a cording foot, you need to have a practice a little bit. I can't believe this is coming out straight away without getting knotted. I'm always in a knot with embroidery threads. Because it's DMC, isn't it? Okay. So let's have a go. I'm going to choose one of those smocking stitches. So let's go 59. Oh no, I want mode 159. 59, that's it. And I'm going to put the 3 threads right underneath the foot. I'll slow the machine down a bit, I'm still not using the foot pedal, and I'm just going to separate them to guide them, and let's see what happens there. Oh, not that slow though. Oh, no, quicker than that. So as long as I'm keeping these flat, oh, that's got a bit twisted, but you'll get the idea. In fact, let's keep them open a little bit. Again, play with it. Could be, say, knitting yarn, could be 1 strand, 4 strands. The trick is to just keep them feeding at even widths underneath the foot. Ooh, that's gone a little bit wider. That's missed a little bit. And just have a go at the different stitches. Let's stop there. Oh, that could be quite fun. So it was too close together there, but it's kind of nice, isn't it? And then that's what I was aiming for, just kind of catching either side. But that could be a really nice trim around a pocket or on the hemline of a little girl's dress. And I'm imagining a tiered skirt with lots of decorations and all the different tiers. Utility stitch wise though, I was going to do a bit with gathering as well. We can do that with the embroidery thread. Then I'm not wasting it, am I? There's lots of different ways of gathering, but it's quite nice to have a little bit of fun with that. So let's try just using a zigzag stitch. So I'm going to put my thread over the fabric first. Anything that you're gathering, whether it's elastic or cording like this or shirring elastic, I'd always hem first. Because once fabric's gathered, if you've got a small amount at the top that you need to hem, you're going to have to ungather it as you're hemming, which can be a little bit of a pain. So zigzag stitch is number 12 in mode 1. Oh no, that's the triple one. Oh no, it's not, we're fine. Let's go for 11. Look the same to me. And then I'm going to zigzag each side. Oh, that could be wider. That could be maybe a little bit wider. Again, play with this before you... Oh no, it's doing all right. I'll make it wider anyway. because I don't want to catch the thread. I want to zigzag each side of the thread. That's better. So normally with a gather, whether it's elastic or shirring or whatever, you don't see the elastic, or the idea is that the elastic is hidden on the back, so all you're going to see on the front is a zigzag stitch. But this is quite a nice way of making gathering a feature. So I've got, oh, I have caught it, no I haven't. So I've got the thread running through the centre, and then I can gather this up. Just a really easy way of doing it, with no elastic involved. So although it's a gather, it's not going to be a stretch, but it's a really easy way of doing it. Gathering normally, you would, on a sewing machine, so 2 rows of stitches. Around about 1/4 of an inch apart or 1/2 inch apart, depending on what you're making. Always have 2 rows of stitches because it enables the gathered area to sit flat, and also if you break one of the stitch lengths, you've still got another one to go at. And then you very carefully, if you loosen the tension really loose, you'll be able to take the bottom thread, the bobbin thread, and pull those stitches and pull it tight. It can be a bit of a nightmare when you've got really long pieces together, because you'll be gathering, and you'll get almost to the end and something will snap or give way or something. It takes ages to get it even. So if you've got larger areas or thicker fabrics together, that's a nice way of doing it. We could do elastic gathering. Everything ends up on the floor here, doesn't it? In which case there is another zigzag stitch, which is great for doing elastic. And it's one with 3 points. So on this machine, it is number 13. And again, I'm going to make it quite wide because I've got a wide piece of elastic. And I'm going to start by just sewing a couple of stitches without stretching, just to make sure I've got the right stitch length, but to secure the elastic to the fabric as well. And then you need to pull the elastic. So again, practice on this, because as you're pulling the elastic, you're going to pull it against the needle, and you don't want the needle to bend. So as you're pulling the elastic in this direction, you want to pull in the fabric in the opposite direction from the back of the machine, so that the area that goes underneath your needle is kept flat as you sew. So let's get started here. So again, pull the elastic, and I'm guiding it through from the back, and this is giving a triple stitch. Can you see that kind of limbo in here? A triple stitch. So if your elastic is slightly smaller than the stitch, it's not actually going to pull through, and then when you let go, it all gathers up. So you've got a nice little gather. I've got a different coloured thread in the bottom, so you can't quite see that, but that's normally what you'd see from the right side of your fabric. So you'll have the same look as if you gathered by cord, but of course it's elastic, so this is stretchy, so you're going to be able to get it on easier. So that's that type of elastic. Another type of elastic is shirring, which is there, it's not quite on the floor. And with this one, you do get spare bobbins with the machine. In fact, we've got a packet of bobbins somewhere, haven't we? Ooh, if you wanted extra bobbins, we've got them. Make sure that you're always using the right bobbin for your machine. Most of them are standard sizes, to be honest, but if your bobbin isn't the right size for your sewing machine, it's going to inhibit the bobbin thread going through the machine, and you'll blame poor old tension, and it's not tension's fault, it's a wrong bobbin scenario. It always surprises me, actually. There's a few manufacturers that do mending kits or little sewing kits and baskets, and they put metal bobbins in there, and I really don't know why, because there's very few machines nowadays that use metal bobbins, but again, they need to be the right size for your machine. So this time, this is shirring elastic, so it looks like a thread, but it's stretchy. So basically you have a polyester core, an elastic, very fine rubber elastic, which is wrapped around the outside, which gives it the stretch. So to put it into, you only put this in the bottom, not in the top, and you're going to hand wind your bobbin. No, I don't stretch it. I know some of you have been told that you stretch your elastic. I find if you stretch the elastic, as soon as you let it go, it just unwinds all over the place. So if you can get away with it stretching, fine, but I don't tend to do that. You may find that you need to put more elastic, more elastic if you're doing larger areas, because obviously you're going to have less elastic on here than you would do if you're using a thread. But just keep winding, it's worth it. And you can get this in different colours as well. I've got some lovely orange shearing elastic. So it could be a real feature. This is one of the occasions where I'm going to allow you to play with the tension. Normally I say don't touch it, no need to. But if you're gathering, as I said earlier, with the 2 rows of stitches, then loosening the tension a lot will really help. And if you're shearing, then tightening the tension a lot will help. But like I keep saying, have a practice on scrap first. So we have a drop-in bobbin. This is going to go in just the same way as your thread would do. So drop-in bobbins, in fact all bobbins, the thread will come off the bottom in the shape of a letter E. Drop it in, pull it around to one side. This one's got a thread cutter, so snip it off, and that does need to be in there. I'm not going to snip it because it's bouncing back again. But just make sure it's engaged in the tension down here, so follow the groove that goes in there. So we'll go back to a straight stitch. So the easiest way to do that is to switch the machine off and on again. That will default to straight. I'm going to lengthen the stitch. It'll default to 2.2, I think that was. So I'm going to go right up to number 5, which is the longest stitch on here. The tension's on the top. So it says auto. That's where it'll be when you get the machine home. Leave it there. 99% of your projects, leave it there. But I'm going to take it up. Which way is up? Oh, all the way around that way. Okay. I'm going to take it right up to number 9. So your tension, or the roll of the top and the bottom thread on your machine, is to deliver the threads, top and bottom, so they meet in the centre of your 2 layers of fabric, or however many fabrics you're sewing. If you increase the tension at the top, it makes the top thread tighter, so the bottom thread pulls up. So if you do have any kind of nesting problems of thread underneath your needle but on top of your fabric, it's too much thread coming through from the bottom. There's lots of different reasons for that to happen. But when you're using shearing elastic, I want that to happen. I want that thread to pull the elastic through. It won't go all the way through the fabric. It's not going to show on the right side, but it'll just mean that when the top thread loops around the shearing thread, it's going to be really, really tight. We don't want the shearing to slip. Not like the cord that I gathered with earlier on. Now then, make sure you hem first, because this is nigh on possible to hem afterwards. And if you're making a boob tube, or a child's dress, maybe a little summer dresses, I would sew the whole tube to start with, and then sew round and round in circles. So instead of going backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards, if you go round in a circle, you're not going to have 2 seam lines down the side where maybe the rows of elastic don't match up. Right, and then we sew. Again, play on scrap fabric first of all, just in case. So as we're sewing, that'll start to gather. And you look at that and think, well, it's not very impressive at the moment. I haven't got a very big gather on that one. So then we're going to go again. So I just use the edge of my foot as a guide and pull the fabric slightly to stretch it out as you sew. And sew next to it. And you'll find that the more rows you sew, the tighter the elastic gets. See, that's gathered up a little bit more. So let's just do one more row. So I'm just straightening that out. That's not a big effort to pull against it. Just so I'm not sewing pleats. I want gathers, not pleats. Doesn't like cutting the elastic. So the more you go, the more that's going to shrink. You could sew in straighter lines than I have. If that's not gathered quite enough, if you do have an end, you can take the elastic and pull it to make it tighter. So on smaller areas that will probably work. Or if your fabric will cope with it, take a really hot iron and blast it with steam. Don't press it flat, but give it a good old blast of steam really close to the elastic, and it shrinks it. So it should all gather up a little bit when you do it that way. So that's 3 ways of gathering for you, which I hope you liked. Where I put my other bobbin. You do get spare bobbins, and of course you've got your screwdrivers and your brushes and all of your bits and bobs that you need. We haven't had a look in here, have we? Oh! So in here you have a blind hem foot. I knew there was more than that. There was an over edge foot, or was there not? Oh no, it was, sorry, I was looking for something else. That's a blind hem foot. This one is a 1/4 inch foot with a guide on the side, so that is perfect for echo quilting or stitching in the ditch. We also have an open-toed satin foot, so you can really see where you're sewing with that one. That's a personal preference, whichever one you like. And you have a button placement foot. So you can sew buttons on with the machine, and there is a stitch, which on this one is number 33, that will enable you to do that. Anything else? See, that's where the spare bobbins were. Now then, I showed you earlier on this foot that had a dish on the bottom. This is actually an adaptable blind hem darning foot. So you can change the dish section on the end of the foot for an open-toed free motion foot or a closed-toed free motion foot. Well, there you go, who knew? And then you have an extra spool holder so you can do twin needle sewing. Shall we? Because we've got a twin needle in here as well. That wasn't planned. We didn't go through that one in rehearsal. Right, so let's pop the extra feet back in there. I love having a play with new machines. So with twin needle sewing, your extra spool sits in the top here, and we'll need an extra spool holder to hold that in place. You should have different sizes of those. That's another tension thing. I should be saving all of these tips and everything for the sewing surgery, but they just kind of come out my mouth. Always use the same size of spool holder or spool cap as your thread, or as near to that as you possibly can. If you're using one that's too big, that's going to prevent the flow evenly of the thread coming off the spool. You'll think it's tension because your threads will be tight. And if it's too small, it can actually make the thread come off a little bit too quickly. And always have your thread coming off the spool in the same, can't even see that, can you? In the same direction. So that's the top of my thread, and it's coming off in that direction. And that will help to stop your thread from twisting as it comes off. And that helps with hand sewing as well. When you pop the end of these, always take the sticky bit off, because that can catch on the thread as it goes through the machine. And guess what? You'll blame the tension. Poor tension. Such a bad press. When I come back in the next life, I don't want to be a tension. All right, let's pop that on there. That's not the right one, but it's the only one I can find. So with your twin needle, we're going to go through exactly the same threading system as the first needle, all the way down through the take-up lever down to here, but this time you won't be able to use the needle threader. Sorry about that. So I'm going to take this needle out, which is very tight, so I'm sure I saw a screwdriver. Maybe I didn't see a screwdriver. You do have one. Oh yes, here we go. And there's the spare spools, and there's your straight stitch plate as well. It's all there. So let's drop this one off. It's nice that everything's on board, isn't it? It's like the Swiss Army of sewing machines. Everything flicks out and everything's there on board. If you haven't used a twin needle before, the shank is just the same as any other regular domestic sewing machine. So you've got one shank with a flat back and then two needles coming off it. These are available in different widths, so you can go up to 6 or 7 millimetres sometimes with the distance between the needles. In you go. And you can get triple needles as well. I have one, I've never used it though. Oh, let me know if you've ever used a triple needle. Every time I talk about it, I think I must get around to using that. Go on up there. That's it. And then we'll tighten that up. So, I may be a while here because my eyes aren't brilliant. And you will have to thread both of these by hand. They're getting worse as well, you know, my eyes. Where are you? There you are. So I'm keeping the green to the left and kind of the red to the right, but it doesn't really matter if they get twisted. They won't be twisted when they go through the machine. Got that cut there, that's it, right. So let's see if I can finish this before the end of the show. Why did I decide to do this? I always put my finger behind the needle because otherwise all I see is lots of shiny silver and I can't see where the eye of the needle is. You could try a little piece of white fabric or paper or something behind the... I'm just going to turn this around so I can see. In you go. Please go in. You know, if you've just joined us, this is around about the same time yesterday as I was doing a very similar thing with an overlocker which didn't want to thread at all. But we did do it today, so I may well be asking if I can come back on Sunday when I'm in again with this machine so I can show you that it does work with a twin needle. So, yes, yes, no, yes, yes. Come on, yes. If you have just joined us, that probably sounded like when Harry met Sally, didn't it? Oh, come on, go on through. It's worth it, honestly. Remind me to take that tension down as well. When you've increased the tension for one thing, quite occasionally you forget to take it down, and then you can blame the tension because it's far too high. I could just describe how to do this, couldn't I? Ah, ha, ha, ha. There you go. Right. So that's done. Tension back down to auto. Thank you very much. Now then, some of the stitches don't look so good. So again, have a practice first of all, like particularly the satin stitches tend to stitch over the top of each other, which isn't such a good look, I don't think. Some of the stitches you can't use at all. So on the machine, when we were looking at the dial earlier on, there's a twin needle button. With the wider decorative stitches, because you've got two needles in there now, if you choose those stitches, the needle will swing too far to one side or the other as they're stitching, and they'll break. The needles will break on the side of your foot. Things like a buttonhole. There would never be any need to use a twin needle on a buttonhole because you'd be sewing over the centre of the buttonhole and you won't be able to cut it through. So what you're going to do is just click on the twin needle button here, and then, for instance, if I try to choose a buttonhole, which is stitch number 26, it's not letting me do that. It will not let me choose it, and I've got this icon flashing here, just say stop it. If I do a satin stitch, say in mode 2, number 47, that's not going to do it either. That's one of the satin stitch designs. That's not going to work. You do get a nice effect with just a zigzag. So let's go back again into mode 1, and zigzag was number 11. That's okay, happy with that one. Again, you can adjust the length and the width if you wanted a different look. And then we'll take a fabric. And so, I'll show you why you need this for stretch fabric as well in just a second. So I'm not concerned, I'm not testing the fabric for it to make sure that the needle's on the right width, or the stitch is the right width. Oh, don't use your needle cutter with this one either. Your thread cutter, sorry. I know that that's going to be of the right width of stitch and not hit the side of the foot because I've pressed that twin needle icon. I wonder if we can do a decorative stitch, actually, because some of them do look really pretty. So let's go to, let's try a 76 in mode 2. Ooh, what about a cross stitch? Let's go back to mode 1 and do a 67. Not having that one. A 59. Nope. Can we do a 69? Nope. Oh, it's not happy with these, is it? What about a number 01 in mode 2? Can we do that one? Mode 2, 01. Oh, happy with that. I like a machine that communicates. I like one that goes, I'm not doing that. Don't want to do that one. No, I'm not doing that one. Wrong stitch for that one. And let's go. So this is just the wavy line. But that's quite pretty. Needle up. And again, don't use your thread trimmer with that one. That's pretty, isn't it? So it's nice to make decorative stitches, but if you're sewing stretch fabric, I haven't got my stretch fabric with me. I'll just show what it looks like on a straight stitch. So back to mode 1, stitch 01. Are we 01? Let's go off and on again just to make sure I've got the straight stitch. Because a straight stitch will create a stretch stitch. So if you have a look at anything you're wearing at the moment that may be stretch, or it's made out of a jersey, if you're wearing a t-shirt or stretchy pyjamas, or if your kids are wearing anything like that, you'll see for the hems a double row of stitches on the top like this. It's probably been made with a cover stitch machine, not a sewing machine, but it's the same kind of look. So that's what you'll see on the top of the machine. But on the back, the bobbin thread is zigzagging from one side to another. And that's what gives it its stretch. So it's not just a pretty stitch and finishing the seam nicely, it will create stretch on stretch fabric. So that's the easiest way to hem it. And it's always important to use the right stitch on stretch fabric, because if you just use a straight stitch, it will work and it will sew the seam together, and as soon as you bend over, you'll hear a ripping sound, which is not what you want to hear. Something else you can do, we're going to talk tensions again. So I'm using the straight stitch and just the standard foot, and I'm going to take the thread all the way up to, the tension all the way up to number 9. I don't know if you'll see it clearly with this one. But now I've pulled the tension up, or you can, I'm creating a pin tuck. So you can see how the centre in between the two pieces, the two lengths of thread is raised. That's because the top threads are pulling against the bottom threads. The bottom threads have gone tighter. And if you do this in the same colour thread as your fabric, you just see a nice raised pin tuck. Rows and rows of those look really good together. And a pin tuck foot is something else that you can buy. We don't have those available here, but they are available to help you sew those in straight lines. Okay, should we get the regular needle back on again? Got any questions, by the way? Oh, Dawn says, playing with stitches, I found that the zigzag seam to be pushed down and all ridged. The zigzag seam pushed down and all ridged. Does the pressure need to be loosened? Depending what kind of fabric you're using. Zigzag seam pushed down and all ridged. Yeah, it depends on your fabric. If you're using, if you've got a pressure dowel, give it a try. Try changing your stitch length. That may help with the zigzag stitch as well. Different fabrics behave in different ways. Different threads behave in different ways. Different manufacturers of threads behave in different ways. Some manufacturers of sewing machines don't like particular brands of thread. I don't know why. But if you do have problems like that, then it's always worth just changing everything. And it's like eliminating things that you're allergic to. Was that a good analogy? Go through the whole process. Nope, it's not the thread. No, it's not the fabric. No, it's not the tension. And just go through everything until you find what it is you're looking for. So, okay, if you want to order, this is the machine that has the 5-year warranty, remember. Don't do any of the machines with 5-year warranties. They will come with 5-year warranties. You'll have to buy them. So those will be an extra. And this is the machine of choice whenever we have, because we've got so many machines here, and they're all here, they're all up in the office upstairs. But when we have guest designers in, we say, which machine would you like to demonstrate with or use for your demonstrations? 9 out of 10 will say, I'd like that Elna 680, please. And I think it's ease of use, and it's because it's so quiet and so smooth and so easy to use and so easy to thread. But more than anything, it's a reliability. You know that when you start sewing, you're going to finish sewing, you're going to have a perfect line of stitches. It looks really lovely as well, doesn't it? Remember, you do get the extension table, and you do have your knee lifter. We haven't shown you those here, but you do get them. A whole array of feet. Of course, you've got your instructions included as well, and you've got a really simple sewing machine to use. So it's £1,099. If you're having a shop around, you won't find this deal, but look for a computerised sewing machine with at least 170 stitches, with all of those feet and everything that I've taken you through, with an extension table and a knee lifter and a memory and the alphabet and numbers, and then search what kind of prices you would pay for that kind of machine. And I don't think you're going to come up with a deal that's anything like this. So give it a try. You can order on sewingstreet.com, or you can order on the phone lines. And if you've got any more questions there, then ask away. We'll find an answer for you if we can't come up with it straight away. You can order on 0800 001 4433 if you wanted to order on the phone lines. Okay, where are we? Oh gosh, that's gone so quickly this morning. What a quick morning. Shall we have a look what's coming up tomorrow? Or shall we have a look at what else we've got? Because we do, oh, I'm making such a mess. We do have extra bobbins for you for any of the Janome home use models. So if you have a Janome, which is therefore Elna, sewing machine, then those are going to be suitable for you. I always like to stock up on these. I like lots of storage for bobbins, and I always like them full up, so that I don't have to. I said yesterday, I hate filling up bobbins. It's like putting petrol in the car. It's a chore. I just want it out the way. So I tend to have stacks and stacks of bobbins that are already pre-threaded with my matching thread. So that's a nice one to go for. We've got extra needles for you as well. And these are a stretch needle. They're brand new to Janome. They're the purple tipped ones. So have a look on the website for more details. But if you're sewing stretch fabric, so fabric with elastane, knitted fabrics, jerseys, then these are the right needles for the job. That's something else that gets blamed on tension. Not necessarily. It could be just the needles. We have a circular sewing device as well. So although you can sew a couple of circle sizes on the sewing machine, this will enable you to sew circles up to 10 inches in diameter. And I've seen some lovely quilts that you've made, just sewing circles to quilt the whole look. Difficult to sew normally, aren't they, without the right attachment? This again will fit it'll fit all of the Elnas that we have on the channel. So any machine that you've already bought from us, then that's going to fit. That's £49. What else shall we have a look at? We can have a look what's coming up tomorrow. Getting rather busy here, isn't it? So we'll be here live again at 11 o'clock. Live again at 8 o'clock, we'll cut that up, in the morning. And this is what you're going to see. So fabulous fabrics coming up in the 8 o'clock show. Kerry came in on Monday and she's done some filming for us. And in fact, I think you've got a couple of projects there and kits. So we'll be living in loveliness with Kerry at 9 o'clock. And then Creative Grids, that's Stripology, one of our most popular tools, is at 10 o'clock this morning. Right, I shall see you again on Sunday morning. I know we have the embroidery machine coming up on Sunday because I'm taking that home to have a play with it. And then on Monday morning, if you haven't been watching this morning and you're thinking, oh, I like the look of those quilted items that are hanging up, I've got a new book. This is going to be exclusive to Sewing Street for 2 weeks. So nobody else, even the big online stores that are pre-ordering, you will get this book from Sewing Street before you get it from them, and you can get it signed as well if you get in there early enough. So this is my latest book. It's called Sewing Room Secrets Quilting, and it's a quilting techniques book for beginners. So I'm not making a big patchwork quilt. We're not going to be looking at half square triangles and, you know, patchwork in that kind of respect. It's different ways of quilting. So there's quilt as you go, there's stitching in the ditch, there's stippling, there's echo quilting, there's tying a quilt, there's a lot about bindings and grown-on bindings and bindings that you make, and it's more like a jargon demystifier for those of you that are starting quilting. And then you can take each one of those methods that you've learnt, and there are 10 projects that you can learn how to sew as well. So I think by the feedback that we've had so far this morning, we're going to have a very busy show. You don't have to watch the show. Take note of our number, which is 0800 001 4433. First thing on Monday morning when you wake up, give them a ring and say, is Debbie's book out there yet? If you want it. Or you can go onto the website. It should be on the website first thing on Monday morning, and that's sewingstreet.com. So don't worry about sitting watching the whole show or anything like that. Okay, so what I just showed you is coming up tomorrow is actually what's on Thursday. So if you'd like to know what's coming up tomorrow, we have fabulous fabrics at 9 o'clock in the morning. And then as a design roll quilt coming up at 10 o'clock. And at 11 o'clock, there's sewing room tools. So that's what's coming on up tomorrow. And now you know what's coming up on Thursday as well. So there you go. So thank you for all of your comments, thank you for all of your feedback, and for everyone that's posted on Facebook. I shall look forward to seeing you on Sunday and Monday again next week. I've had a really lovely morning. Don't go anywhere if you're still up for a bit of sewing, because for the next couple of hours we'll be showing repeats of shows, and then again we'll be live again at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. So enjoy the rest of your day and stay safe, and I shall see you soon.